Let's start the class. Okay, so we're going to continue where we stopped. We're looking at the laws in the book of Exodus. We are going to hang our hat on that of slavery. We're going to try to decipher the first two laws on slavery in Exodus 21. I am going to read the laws and then we would see if we can go home with some understanding of why these laws are given. FYI, we are not going to be looking at it from the narrative context as we did last week. We're going to look at the laws by themselves. We're going to compare them with the laws from the ancient Near East, and then we see, we conclude on why ours, in the context of slavery, is a bit different from that of the ancient Near East. So let's hit the ground running. I'm going to read the first part of the law and then we would try to decipher it. Exodus 21. These are the ordinances that you shall set before them. Should you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall work for 6 years, and in the 7th year he shall go out to freedom without charge. If he comes in alone, he shall go out alone. If he is a married man, his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her master, and he shall go out alone. But if the slave says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go free, his master shall bring him to the judges, and he shall bring him to the door or to the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. So clearly, when we read this, we know that in the ancient world, slavery was something that was done. It was the norm. What is the Torah doing here? Is the Torah condoning slavery? Or is the Torah legislating this so that it wouldn't be as cruel as that in the ancient Near East? That would be a question that you would have to answer yourself after we've gone through the rules that the Torah is given here. What would make someone become a slave in the ancient Near East? Well, when a person borrowed money, sometimes the debt obligation. Oh, Madame Toy says death. Sorry, debt. That word is always confusing to me. Debt. Yes. The Drew says war, poverty, death. Correct? Yes. A whole lot of things. Usually it was debt when you owed someone money. The interesting thing about the Asian Near East, I don't think it is today. Well, in the communities that I have lived, I don't think that is the case. I may be wrong here in the United States. Correct me if I'm wrong with this statement. But in ancient times, when a person borrowed money, the debt obligation fell not only upon the borrower and his worldly goods, but also upon the members of his family. Is that accurate in the United States? Or when, so for example, okay, it's not the case in the US. Okay, so if I borrow money and I pass, the debt doesn't go move over to my to the family I left behind, correct?
In the UK, it goes to the wife if you're married, so she would have to still resolve it. Like in terms of like if you're married, that is, but if you're not married, I think it's slightly different.
Huh.
Your wife pick up the debt in the U.S.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
my wife's father, when he had passed, it was like 1995, 1996. And he had this debt that he accrued. Her mother had to go and get that stuff situated because they were trying to make her pay off his debt. I mean, there's ways out of it, but it does pass on to the person that you're married to.
Oh.
Also, Rabbi, this is Marie. In Canada and here in the United States, if that person is not married, the debt is passed down to his estate.
Okay. Wow. Yikes.
Rabbi,
Yes, Brother Rachel.
if the spouse sign on the loan, yes, but if she doesn't or he doesn't, no.
Okay. Okay.
It depends on the state. If it's a community property state, then yes. But if it's not a community property state, then no.
Okay. Interesting.
And the reason, and also, brothers, like in the UK, then the wife will have to sort out how it to make a payment plans if she hasn't got the money. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
So she has to make the arrangements to either pay it or sell the house or whatever it is. And like, especially the worst one is if the wife doesn't know or the husband doesn't know, and then one of them dies, and then this come up.
Okay. Okay. So it seems like it's somewhat close to times of old when the debt obligation fell in the Asian Near East, not only upon the borrower, but also upon members of his family. In the absence of sufficient assets, the debtor or members of his family could be taken into debt slavery in order to repay the obligation through their labor. So, father dies, leaves debt, mother can't pay the debt. Maybe the children, a child, will be taken into debt slavery, and the child will have to work off the debt that was accumulated by the deceased. Okay. But Amadra says Trokosi. Okay. Very good comparison. Is that accurate? Yeah, you have it. Yeah, you have a point, Madam Majora. Yeah. So you see the concerns here. You see the issues here. What the Torah does is the Torah contains laws, or should I say injunctions, whose aim was to help alleviate the situation of debtors and their families. People get into debt for all sorts of reasons, legitimate reasons. And people had to become slaves, debt slaves, when the debt is not paid for or it cannot be paid by the debtor. So now you have to legislate, you have to come up with rules on how to help, not the lender, but the borrower. I want to ask a question here, but I think it's premature. Let's go on. I'll come back and ask the question because I'm confused with this law here, but I'll come back and ask the question. When we say family, when I say the debt obligation falls upon members of the family, what do I mean by family? The family household in the ancient Near East or in the ancient world, where this text is being, the context, includes non-free individuals as well as free individuals. When we say a family, it's not just the bloodline, but it would include slaves as well. They are part of the family structure. Okay. The non-free slaves could be houseborn who was the child of a slave mother in his owner's household. So you were a slave and then you give birth in your as a slave, your status was a slave, you gave birth, your children are slaves, and they belong to your master. We have one who was purchased for money. That is how one also became part of this household, but you are not really part of them. You are actually a slave, and this is how people became slaves. Or a captive taken as booty in warfare. This is how someone becomes a slave. These slaves here that I've mentioned, the houseborn one, the one purchased with money, or the one that came about via war, a civil war, etc., these are different from chattel slaves. Sorry, these are different from debt slaves. Slaves that become slaves because they owe money. The issue is that Torah uses the same word for them. So sometimes people get confused. But debt slaves are different from these slaves that I have mentioned here. With those who became slaves because they owe money, their servitude is initially not permanent. It is temporary. They are working so that they can pay off the debt. Once the debt is paid off, they are free. Not with the chattel slaves. They are permanent slaves because they belong to the master. The issue is the same Hebrew term is used, so sometimes we get confused. Okay.
So how do you tell the difference? Is it the context of the sentence?
Context, correct, yes. The context is what determines the difference. When we talk about, so the Madam Jew,
are the slaves that are owned, are they released at Jubilee?
they're not the chattel.
They're forever slaves.
They are forever slaves, correct.
Okay, so only the ones that were purchased or that were prisoners of war, those are released at Jubilee. Those are the only ones?
No, they're not. The only ones released during the Jubilee are the Hebrew slaves who came into slavery because of debt or something. They're working to pay off something.
That was going to be my next question. So a Hebrew slave could never be considered chattel slavery then?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because chattel slaves are typically described in the text as non-Israelites whose servitude was without termination. You cannot hold an Israelite hostage permanently. there's a clause there. We'll get to that. But usually, chattel slaves are typically described as non-Israelites whose servitude was without termination. Would have to answer why that is the case. It seems unfair, but would have to answer. Let me write that down so that I don't forget. Would have to answer why is it that non-Israelites are permanent? Are we not playing favoritism? But we would have to answer that question. So when we come to Leviticus 25, it tells us this. Your male slave or female slave, whom you may have from the other nations that are around you, from them you may acquire a male slave or a female slave. And also from the children of the residents that live among you, from them you may acquire slaves, and from their family that is with you, whom they begot in your land, and they shall become your inheritance. You shall hold on to them as an inheritance for your children after you as acquired property, and may thus have them serve you forever. But as for your brethren, the children of Israel, a man shall not work his brother with rigor. So, you cannot hold your fellow Israelite as a permanent slave, and even if the person is working for you, it doesn't mean that because the person owes you, you're working them to death. You're killing them. You're giving them harsh labor. No, you cannot do that. The Torah is speaking against that. We'll look into details when we get to Leviticus, but we're not there yet. But just to show you how the non-Israelite seems to be treated differently from the Israelite. So here, the law appears to frown upon holding one's fellow Israelite as a slave. But the possibility is not ruled out. Because a fellow Israelite could fall into slavery through impoverishment and debt. It's not ruled out. No, you can become a slave. It could be that your slavery will look permanent because you owe so much, you have to work your whole life to pay. So, though the text is saying don't hold them hostage, there are possibilities that one can be held hostage his whole life. You could, if the person has a property, has some assets, you could take that to satisfy the debt. If that is not the case, sometimes the father who came for the money or who owes the debt is too old to work to pay you. So now the family members are held hostage. Usually, if the debtor is around and it's a father, the debtor would voluntarily give a child to go work on his behalf. But what if the father is dead? What if the widow cannot pay off this debt genuinely? Sometimes the lender or the person the creditor would come and take the children hostage by force so that they would come and work to pay off the debt. That is what we saw or we see, those who have read ahead, in 2 Kings chapters 4. We know that story very well. Now a woman of the wives of the disciples of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, Your servant my husband has died, and you know that your servant did fear Yah, and the creditor has come to take my 2 children for himself as slaves. This prophet died owing some money. The money that he borrowed, he used to take care of these prophets who were running from death. He accommodates them. He takes money from the prince. The prince charges him so much interest he cannot pay for it. He passes. Now they're going to come take his children, or her children, he's dead, her children as slaves. She runs to the prophet Obadiah. Thank you, Mr. David. That's the prophet here who passed. She runs, the widow runs to Elisha to inform Elijah, hey, we are in trouble. They are going to come take my children. Elijah said to her, verses 2, what shall I do for you? Tell me what you have in the house. And she said, your maidservant has nothing at all in the house except a jug of oil. And he said, borrow vessels for yourself from outside, from all your neighbors. Do not borrow only a few empty vessels. You have a lot of money to pay. So you better get more vessels, as we're going to have to do a miracle for them not to take your children. Verses 4, and you shall come and close the door about yourself and about your sons, and you shall pour upon all these vessels, and the full one you shall carry away. And she went away from him and closed the door about herself and about her sons. They were bringing vessels to her, and she was pouring. And it was when the vessels were full that she said to her son, bring me another vessel. And he said to her, there is no other vessel. And the oil stopped. And she came and told the man of Elohim. And he said, go sell the oil and pay your debt. And you and your sons will live with the remainder. So this woman happily was able to repay her debt and have her children go free via the help of the prophet Elisha. How did she get in debt? It was her husband that got in debt. When he died, now legally they are going to come carry her children away to go work to pay off the debt. Well, this debt, yes, could the children have worked to pay it off? Yes, but it is racking interest. The lender wasn't supposed to charge interest, but he was. So such debts, they are difficult to pay off. We all know that. We all have that experience. Well, I do. I have the experience here in this country. So it's difficult. This will make people go into slavery permanently because you cannot pay them off. So if yes, go ahead, Madam Edna.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
As you're speaking, what I noticed is, although the prophet Obadiah didn't see the returns, but as the Bible say, give and it shall be given back to you.
Correct.
But here, the reward is given back to the family.
True.
What a blessing.
True. So in the case where, Madam Cynthia, yes, go ahead.
Can I add to that? Because
Yeah.
I feel like I don't want to look at things with like roses tinted glasses. This is my opinion, guys. No one has to agree with me. But the fact that remains is that she had to go to the prophet and ask for help. Like, Yah didn't step in and say, how? and put oil in the vessels. There was a process that she had to go through, which is for me is an interesting story, because I think sometimes we do something that we believe is right and is supportive of another person or a group of people, and because we've done that right thing, or that what we think is great and right and charity or whatever it is, we assume that Yah's going to just step in and deal with things, and we won't have to go down a challenging path, because what we use our thing for was for good. But it shows you that regardless of the fact that Obadiah did do good by these prophets, that his wife still had to have the threat of the children being taken away. She still had to go to a prophet and get support. And in that process, she may not have felt that she was going to be able to even pay it back. And the stress and the pressure. And I think it's interesting, and I think it's important for us to really think about that. That just because you do the right thing or do the good thing, that Yah is going to just going to deal with it without you having to sweat for it.
Correct, yes. And you see, there's more to the story too here. This wouldn't have been an issue if the prince wasn't charging interest, and what he was doing was against Torah. So it brought about all this. This shouldn't have been an issue at all. This here shouldn't be an issue, but it happened because one side, who was Hebrew, wasn't keeping the Torah. Yes, Mr. Dean.
So can I ask you a question? So how are you supposed to lend money then?
Without interest.
So, like, okay.
Correct.
How do you make money?
Correct. If you're lending money, this is not a business deal. If it's a business deal, that's different. Yes, you're supposed to get profits. But if, let's say, I come to you, Mr. Dean, and I said, hey, you know what? I have an issue, a situation at home. I cannot pay the kids' school fees. Can you lend me some money to cover this month so that I'll pay you back maybe in 2 months?
Yeah.
Yes. If you do have and you choose to give, the Torah says don't take interest on it. If I come and I said I have a business deal, yes, this is personal.
Yeah.
If I come and I say I have a business deal, you're supposed to ask me, okay, what's the profit margin? You negotiate. That is business. This is a debt. Give me money, let me take care of something, and then I'll pay you back.
So even in business, you look for profit margins, not interest.
Correct. Yes. Well, I don't know the same thing.
I mean, for me, but yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, man. Because I've been debating different situations with my sister.
True.
I'm just like, I don't get it, but okay. Cool.
Correct. Yes. If it's business, yes, you still deal fairly, and yes. But yes, you're supposed to. If it's a business deal, yes, you're supposed to make some money. That's how you make money.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Akwetey, could you explain the difference between Hagar and what is the other name? Abraham's servant who he sent out.
The difference between Eliezer and Hagar?
Eleazar and Hagar, yes. They're both slaves, technically, correct?
No, Hagar is not a slave. She's a maid servant. So when you say slave, are you saying, you see, that's the difficulty. Chattel or Hebrew slave?
That's the part I'm trying to find out. Then what was Eleazar?
Correct. So Eliezer would be, he's not a Hebrew. At that time, it's only Abraham. No, it's complex there. Let me not speak.
Rabbi,
It's a big complex there. Yes, sir.
I think I might be able to help. Eleazar would be considered chattel, and Hagar would be considered, if you can say, a Hebrew. The reason why is because she was given, according to the tradition, as a dowry from the king to Abraham. So she would be a part of Abraham's family and not necessarily what we would call like a typical slave.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Let's see. Let's see. You see, the reason why I said it's a little difficult to answer that question is because the first Hebrew technically is Isaac. The first full-blooded Hebrew is Isaac. Everyone else is a convert, including Abraham and the wife. You know, so it's a big, delicate, and complicated to really put them in this context that we're doing here. Here we're talking about Hebrews, not people who have converted, people who are born Hebrews. Abraham wasn't born an Hebrew, Sarah was not. They became. So it was like a conversion. They crossed over. The first person will be Isaac. Eliezer is there before Isaac comes along. Hagar is there. When I'm toying, since they're gonna get me. You know, Hagar is there before Isaac comes along. Eliezer is there before Isaac comes along. So everybody who was into that Hebrew walk is all going to be a convert. They're going to convert from whatever they were, which nations they belonged to before they became Hebrew. Technically, the first full-blooded Hebrew, someone who can say I am Hebrew, is Isaac. So to take Abraham, Sarah, Haggai, Eliezer, and put them into this context here is going to be a bit difficult. I would have to jump through some very tight doors to give you a very good answer because they don't fit the context here. They don't fit 100%. They don't fit 100%. So I would go with Haggai as a servant. I won't call her chattel or Eliezer. I won't put them into that context because they don't fit neatly into that context. What I would do rather is I would actually go to the laws of the Hittites, the Assyrians, the laws from Mesopotamia, and then put them into a context from that angle, not from the Hebraic angle. If I do that, I'll be leaning more towards adoption. We'll look at that very shortly. I'll be leaning more towards adoption. They'll be adopted into the household rather than them being chattel or Hebrew. I cannot make that distinction in this case, not yet.
Thank you. Now you bring up another interesting question. Then, what is Ishmael?
Ishmael is he's Hebrew. He's Hebrew. He's he's also Hebrew in a different context. Difficult question. He's Hebrew, but he's not born because the covenant attached to what was given to Abraham is what the Hebrew lineage comes from. And that covenant is through Isaac. So anybody who comes out of Isaac, that lineage, is the one who can claim Hebraic lineage based on a covenant that is given. If you should ask Ishmael, maybe he would say he's from where his father is from. His mother is Egyptian. His father is from all of the Chaldeans, Samaria somewhere. No. So
One last question.
difficult question. Yes, go ahead.
Was the inheritance through the mother before Abraham or before the covenant?
I doubt it. I doubt it. And I think I'm supposing you're asking me about the laws that they kept, correct? This is the law of Hammurabi and the rest. I doubt it.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to
Correct. Yeah, I doubt
get
it.
some.
No, I would doubt it because
Okay.
it was usually extensively patriarchal societies. So I doubt it. So to answer it, broadly, I'll say Ishmael is a Hebrew. But then the moment I say that, now I have to do a lot of work to explain that he's Hebrew, but he's not part of the covenant. Isaac's Hebrewism or Hebrewness is different from Ishmael, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, a little explanations to do. But based on the covenant made with Abraham through him and Yah, it goes through Isaac. So Isaac will be technically the first Hebrew based on that covenant that Abraham had with Yah. Everybody else would be, converting to it. You have to, you'll be converted into that. So, let's see, Madame Toy. Would you say Ishmael was raised with Abraham's faith, raised with Torah? Ishmael, Torah, negative. I think was raised with what Abraham knew. Abraham was now experiencing Yah. He was now on the walk. So Abraham would have taught him what he knew. Would it be the Torah as we have it? I doubt it. No. And he would also have some influence from, he would also have some influence from the mother's side. Huge influence from Haggai. So mixed backgrounds, I'll say, but yes, he wouldn't know what Abraham knew based on what Yah had revealed to him or spoken to him about. But the Torah as we have it, no, I don't think so. Because Abraham, never forget, Abraham is a convert. He is a convert. He's not full-blooded Hebrew. He converts. He wasn't living in a vacuum. He was from Mesopotamia. He was from all of the Chaldeans. And then he started this walk. If you should ask him, he'll tell you where he's from. Now Yah comes and says, I'm going to start something new with you. But you have to convert into it. It's a covenant. And it's going to come through a particular person called Isaac. Anybody who comes from that is going to be a Hebrew that is coming from Isaac. Okay. Was Abraham an Israelite? No. Was Isaac an Israelite? No. I hope you agree. Okay. So, the Israelite thing started with Jacob. Abraham is not Israelite. Isaac is not Israelite. Sarah is not Israelite. The land is not called the land of, Yah didn't tell Abraham, I'm going to give you the land of Israel. He said, I'll give you the land of Canaan. That is the name of it. It's the land of Canaan, not the land of Israel. And was given to Abraham, who was a Hebrew, not an Israelite. Okay. Awesome. Let's go here and continue. So now we see this woman who was able to pay for the debt because she went to sell some oil. If she or her kinfolk were unable to repay the debt, then debt slavery would have been the inevitable result. So, this is not viewed as permanent. But there were troubling questions. Debt slavery is not viewed as permanent, but they are troubling questions. It was a serious social problem in ancient Israel. Not only ancient Israel, among her neighbors, because families of free persons who fell into slavery typically lacked the resources to redeem themselves. If they had the resources, they wouldn't go into slavery, but they lacked the resources to redeem themselves from bondage and to regain their free status. So some of the questions that would come up is how many years of bondage were required in order to satisfy the claims of the creditor? Now, was the original debt reduced by the bondage, or did it only reduce interest on the debt? What are you paying for? Are you paying for the original loan, or you paying for the interest on the debt, like the credit card? If you're only paying interest, boy, and the interest is high, you go to work your whole life. Now, something temporary has become permanent. So, how do you solve such an issue? The Torah comes in and gives us one solution, and it was to set a limit upon the time of servitude for debt slaves. We come back to Exodus 21. It sets a limit. Should you buy a Hebrew slave, you buy him because he's in debt. He shall work for 6 years, and in the 7th year he shall go out to freedom without charge. What does that mean?
His labor covers everything. If you're charging interest or whatever the total bill is, that 7 years covers everything.
Correct. You're not supposed to charge an interest. But let's say you're a bad Hebrew, and you are. The text doesn't care how much the person owes. In 6 years, the text is saying that, you know what? If somebody works for you 6 years, every day, you give them the Shabbat off, whatever amount that they owe should be paid off. Should you buy a Hebrew slave because he's in debt, he owes you, he shall work for 6 years, and in the 7th year he shall go out to freedom without charge. So these are originally free individuals who were sold into slavery to pay off their obligations. So they are debt slaves. So the law here supports the notion that debt slaves should not serve in perpetuity. All obligations, whatever the amount, were extinguished through 6 years of servitude. Okay, now look at the picture here. Think carefully. The person came into slavery because of debt. They have nothing to use to maybe sell or to use as collateral, something to pay off the debt. Now the person has worked 6 years. The 7th year you let them go. What do you think is the automatic issue? What is going to happen after you let them go the 7th year?
Rabbi? Oh,
Yes.
sorry, Mr. Mason.
Oh,
Mr.
they're
Jason?
gonna go back into slavery.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah.
you let them go with nothing, they're gonna go back into slavery. It's the same thing that pretty much happened here in the United States with the freeing of um, our ancestors here. You have no land, you have no property rights, you have no available work because your people haven't amassed enough stuff. So what happens is you have no other choice but to go back
You
into
go back
slavery
into slavery.
and become because you don't have anything.
Correct. So you get a law that seems to help the poor person, and it tells you, I mean, it's very considerate. If he comes in alone, he shall go out alone. If he is a married man, his wife shall go out with him. So it's cleared. Now, if his master gives him a wife, that is a chattel slave, a non-Israelite, the master owns this slave, and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to the master, and she shall go out, and he shall go out alone. Yes, he goes out alone. It makes sense that he goes out alone because the guy cannot even take care of himself. He given him a wife and children too. So it would kind of make sense that no, the children and this non-Hebrew slave stays with the master. That is not my focus here. My focus is sending him away doesn't solve the issue, because just a week after, maybe less, he's going to go back into debt and would have to come and sell himself again to work another 6 years. So the Torah anticipates this. There was recognition that the Hebrew slave might not ever feel able to stand on his own feet economically and socially. So our next verses 5 and 6, describes this possibility. But if the slave says, I love my master, he's not saying that I love my master because he doesn't want to go. But what is he going to? But if the slave says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go free. So he's going to stay and work because there's nothing to go back to. His master shall bring him to the judges. Elohim is used there. And he shall bring him to the door or to the doorpost. And his master shall bore his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever.
Brother Basil, can I just ask you a question? I mean,
Please.
ask a question, but
Please.
I don't understand the concept of love in that context. I don't understand why the use of love.
So
Because it's
here's
almost
the
like he's got
case.
like he has no choice, and
Correct.
for me, I
So if his,
struggle.
yes, I understand where you're coming. If his master was treating him unfairly, if the master was harsh and was working him like a donkey, he would have left. It would be, I mean, there's no need, serving a master who treats you like this. What the slave would go is go somewhere else. Maybe he's heard of some very good masters around. You'd rather go borrow or go sell yourself to someone who's going to treat you like an Abraham treated Eliezer. You would want to go work for Abraham, be in debt to Abraham and not the IRS. I don't know if you have the IRS in the UK. So
Yeah.
that is where the love is coming from. How this master treated him during the 6 years. So this is what's happening here. It looks, I mean, why do you have to go through all these things? It still looks unfair. The person is becoming a slave permanently. And a Hebrew is not supposed to become a slave permanently. But the reason why this is happening is because he has nothing to go to. Why this ritual? Is the Torah being unfair to this person? Why not say work another 6 years and then renew your contract or something?
Yeah, why don't you even just say, give him a little something, like a little cattle and a little something, something, and tend to keep it moving. Just saying.
Hold that thought.
Because-
Very good thought. Hold that thought, Madam Cynthia. I will show you a different text that says exactly what you're saying. Would ask why it doesn't show up here in the book of Exodus. But very good point. That would be the ideal thing to do. Send him away with stuff so that he can sustain himself. Exodus 21 doesn't say that. Yes. Madam Jew.
This reminds me of Laban and Jacob. I understand why Laban was so angry when Jacob was leaving. Here I've been clothing and feeding and housing you all these many years, and you've made a little progress. You made me look good. You made my farm look good, but now you're going to take off. He was offended because, of course, all he had put into the person to make the person something, and then the person decides they're going to leave. I understand that misnomer there. And this is the same kind of situation because the slave came in with nothing, and he's made money off the master's kindness. And the master being able to feed him and clothe him and bear him, also work him, but you don't get to make a profit and then take your profit and exit. I think that's where this thing gets real stinky. It's stinky when it is that I make money off the man who bailed me out of debt, who housed and fed and clothed me and my wife and my children, and then I take and go. So it is you have to go to the judges or to the Elohim, and you say at that point, they make a decision as to whether he stays or whether he goes, and then the ear thing is an identifier as to who you belong to, like a brand or some kind. It makes sense.
Okay, the difficulty is that you're not supposed to brand Hebrew slaves, or any slaves, actually. If you brand the slave goes free. We'll get there. So we have to decipher what is going on here.
And also, Rabbi, I don't think Jacob was only working 8 hours per day. He was putting in a lot of time. So in my book, he is entitled to.
He was working 48 hours in the day.
Exactly. So he's more than entitled to. If it wasn't because of him, Laban wouldn't have been as rich as he is. So Jacob was definitely entitled to.
Correct. It looks like here the text is putting this Hebrew slave who cannot sustain into a lot of pain. Why brand him? Why bring him to the judges? What is going on here? There has to be an explanation, because we know that the Torah wouldn't do that. The Torah will not inflict pain because someone is a slave. Why are the judges involved? Why the doorpost? Why do you have to bore the ear of the person? What is this ritual taking place here? We have to start with the judges. Bring him to the judges. Who are they? Elohim is used. Elohim is used. Elohim can mean judges. Elohim can mean angels. Elohim can mean small gods, G-O-D, because we are not the only ones that use it. The Canaanites use El as well. Who are the Elohims here?
It's the elders that was set up in verse chapter 18, I think 18, 19. But was that when Jethro was like, we need to place elders over the people with tens and hundreds?
Okay,
Those are the
when
people that are the elders, judges.
okay, so when Jethro said he should select leaders, he's saying that those are the Elohims. Okay, awesome. Anyone else? Who are the Elohims here? Or Elohim? Yes,
Could it be the heads of the 12 tribes?
heads of the 12 tribes. Okay. Any other clues? Okay. Now, why the doorpost? Which doorpost is the master? It's not the judges that are bringing the Hebrew slave to the doorpost. It is the master that is bringing the Hebrew slave to the doorpost. Which doorpost?
Is that the entrance to the tabernacle?
The entrance to the tabernacle. Awesome. Any other answers to that?
I've always assumed that it was the master's house, brings to the master's house doorpost. I don't know why I assumed that, but I guess just from the context of reading it, whenever I read that chapter, I've always looked at it as you bring to his house, the master's house. Like, all right, we're going to nail you here. Here's where you stay.
Awesome. Okay. You
Brother Basil, it kind of reminds me, I know this might sound a bit strange, but it kind of reminds me of the Ruth and what's his name? Boaz story. This section of what needs, that when he brought her
correct.
the group, that
Yes.
that the outcast for them as Elohim. Does that
Correct.
make sense?
Yes, those are the judges. Correct. Okay. So you we are decoding this. I'm excited. You are correct. That is not the tabernacle. This is the master, the master's household, the master's doorpost. Is not the tabernacle. You're correct. Okay. If that is the case, then why does he take them to the judges? What for? If we interpret the judges as those who rule over the community, why are you taking them to the judges? And then you bring him to your doorpost. What are the judges supposed to do? Serve as a witness, Madam Sonja says.
Yeah, I was thinking that serve as a sign.
As a sign. Okay. I expected that answer. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say to determine legally free or not.
Do you think maybe the judges are there to maybe convince the person not to go ahead with what they're doing?
No, I think it's more of a legal transaction. No, to make it legal. That's what I was thinking. Is that
To make it
sign
legal, okay.
of the paper?
Yeah.
That's how I saw it.
Okay.
I said, is that sign on paper?
A sign. It
Like
could.
sign.
Yes.
I got a question.
It could be. That's how most
It's
commentators represent it. But yes, Mr. D.
if this is a contract, could it be negotiated certain circumstances, and they are there to be the witness?
Yeah, it could be. Yes, maybe they're there to be the witnesses. Correct.
Rabbi, what this Hebrew slave is about to agree to is contrary to Torah. So I mean, you bring it up to the
Beautiful
judges.
question. Beautiful question. What is he agreeing to? Because Torah frowns upon what he's doing. But what he's doing, there is a there is a tradition that signs off on what he's doing. So now the question is, what is he doing? He's not going to be a permanent slave. That is not what is happening. Torah forbids that. Now look at it carefully, and you see something amazing that is happening. This is a legal act done at the doorpost, not of the tabernacle. It's being done at home. It means that your judges, your designation of the judges is not accurate. It's not the judges in the tabernacle, or it's not the judges over the community.
His family members.
Wow, beautiful. And the family members consist of who? The living and the
Dead.
and the dead.
Now, is this some form of adoption?
There you go. What is he doing? He cannot be a slave. It's against Torah. So what is the master doing? Bringing him to the judges, that is the family members and the ancestors who are passed, to the family house, doorpost, and he's piercing his ears to the door. After that act, what does he become?
Hi.
He
He's a
becomes
son.
family. He's now part of the master's family. Now he can work for the master, not as a slave, but as a family member. So the judges in this context is not those in the tabernacle, because if it's in the tabernacle, then you pierce his ear to the door of the tabernacle. That's not where it's happening. It's the master bringing him in front of the family members, everybody gathered, including the ancestors. These are the Elohims of the family, the judges. These are the witnesses. And then they're going to draw blood. So basically, you're doing this in front of the family shrine. Remember, the doorpost is an altar. We saw that in the Passover. The doorpost is an altar. So there's a ritual taking place at the family shrine to bring this Hebrew, who may be a cousin, who may be a long distance, maybe not even a family at all, but he's a Hebrew from another tribe, and you're bringing him into your family to make him a family member so that he can work forever, not as a slave, because that is frowned upon.
Brother Basil, I'm struggling with this. Like with the whole calling family members Elohim, the dead and the living. Could you expand on that? I know you've spoken about Elohim being judged before, but I'm struggling with that. Because Elohim, I've always kind of associated that with quite a sacred name or allocated specific. I know you've spoken about it before, but
Correct.
I'm struggling. It just seems so frivolous.
Yes.
Like, does that make sense in what I'm saying?
Correct. Elohim just means powers. To have the power. That is all. That is what Elohim means. Powers. We use it in the context of Yah. In the beginning, Elohim created. We use it in the context of Moshe. Moshe is called Elohim. Samuel is called Elohim. The angels are called Elohim. That is why when we ask what is the name of Yah, we don't say of the Hebrew deity, we don't say Elohim. Elohim is used in Canaan. El. Melchizedek said he swears by El Elyon. So Elohim, Laban says he has the power to kill, to do evil to Jacob. He uses Elohim. So when someone says Elohim, context matters. So here you bring the person to the powers of the household. Who are the powers? The family members, the elders. Back then, you bury the dead in the compound, so the ancestors are there. Your shrine is localized to the family house. The doorpost is a shrine.
Rabbi,
Mr. Jason.
I think this will definitely help. Has anybody ever seen the movie Coco before? The Pixar movie Coco?
Yeah, I've seen it, Jason. It's amazing. Absolutely
Yeah,
amazing.
and how in their village they had a shrine for the dead ancestors, and the dead was buried in the camps with them.
Yes.
That's what it would have been like in pre-exilic times. Coco is a perfect example of how our ancestors would have lived, or how the would bring it out. So
And I think also, Justin, I 100% agree with you, because the Coco is that. But I also think that in terms of the two worlds, I think that still, like, that whole system still exists now. Like, you know, when he goes into the other side and when the time comes, they come out and they, like, certain times of the year, they come out and they are present. I believe that's what goes on. So it's an amazing film, absolutely amazing film.
Those are actually African customs. That's where they got it from. Those are Afro Latino customs. It's a whole documentary on it and everything. Like, when you see it, they originated in Africa when they was bringing the slaves over. So that custom that you see in Coco is Afro Latino culture.
So that is what's happening here. That is why back home, when you come and visit somebody and you sit in a compound, they give you water to drink. You don't drink all, you pour some on the ground for the ancestors. Because they are buried. They were buried in the compound. Their family shrine is there. So what you're doing is, with the witness of Yah, with the witness of the ancestors who gave birth to you to make you part of that family, to their witness, to the witness of the living, this Hebrew, not a Gentile, this Hebrew who cannot buy himself out of debt or has bought himself out of debt but doesn't have anything to really go to, can now become part of your household. And this ritual is being done at the shrine of this particular master's household in the presence of anyone that is important, the powers, that is Elohim, that is there, and the person is going to come into that household, and then the person can serve in that household forever, not as a slave, but as a member of that family. Now you've solved that issue that we had in the beginning. Go ahead, Mr. Marvin.
Shabbat shalom. So what I'm trying to understand here is when we say that the master shall bring him to the powers, do the powers have a say-so?
They do, correct. No, they do.
Okay, so if they have a say-so, then the part that I would like to understand is the ancestors, like, because for me, when I think about it, it's almost sounding like, because from what I understand, it's forbidden to speak to the dead, so that's why I'm trying to get a full understanding.
Let me correct that. The ancestors are there. You're on their compound. They are buried there in the ground. So they are present. Their bodies, their bones is there. You cannot deny that. But the ancestors are not communicating with you. They are not saying yes or no. but your family members are, your extended family is there, also present. That is why Elohim is used. You have the living judges, the living powers. So every household, so for example, I'm from the Amaah household based on my last name. We have a family house where if we have to make any decisions concerning the whole family, we have to report to. And then we sit on the compound, and then there is a family head who listens to the case, and then decisions are made in front of the living and then the dead. That's why they will pour libation, and then they'll invoke them to listen to. So you're not communicating with the dead ancestors. No, they are present there in the compound because you cannot deny that.
It's just like a matter of respect, like for the past, like
correct.
And as a whole, as a family, collectively.
Correct.
Both the dead and the living.
Correct. Because, for example, my last name Amaah, I got it because of my dad. So I cannot do anything in the name of the Amaah without consulting with him. And he giving me permission. I can do it in the name of Basil alone. But to say the Amaahs are doing this, I don't have that authority. I have to go back to him. There may be, if he thinks he doesn't have the authority to make that decision, he goes to the head of the Amaah family, the extended family. So this master here bringing the slave, he's not doing it in his backyard, him alone. No, he's initiating him or adopting him into this particular family, so the living and the dead should bear witness to this. But the dead is not speaking. The dead, they're not asking the dead for permission. No, it's the living that is sitting there. Go ahead, say.
Yeah, we just got to get rid of the Western thinking, because when you try to interact biblical culture with Western thinking, you're going to run into tons of issues, because a lot of the things that we were told are demonic and are demonized and things of that nature are actually biblically cultural. We just don't understand how to do them. There was a book written by I can't pronounce the slave name. I think it's like Eliefo Equinos. I can't remember the guy's name, but he talks about the Hebrew traditions. Yeah, that guy. He talks about the Hebrew tradition as he was passing through the land as an indentured servant, how he was a part of like the household and things of that nature. So like you can actually see the biblical culture playing out that we're talking about now. When Rabbi was saying that, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense when I read this in this book. Like I understand what he's saying now. Like, you know, they kept the Shabbat, you know, he didn't work on the Shabbat and things of that nature, but he was just saying like once he got into European slavery, all that changed. It was just a totally different aspect. But you get to see that when he was traveling in between places on the west coast of Africa, that they had these Hebraic practices.
Okay. So this is what's happening here. The Torah is helping, is bringing a solution to a problem that it anticipates. If you send this Hebrew back, he's 100% going to go back into debt. So if he thinks that his master treated him very well, which the Torah tells us to do, he can say, you know what? I think I would go with the option to become part of this family because he has investment here. He has a wife, he has children. And probably he was a good worker as well. So the master brings him to the powers, the Elohim, the judges of that household, because the person is going to be part of that household. And then in front of them, when they agree, now they take him to the shrine, symbolically the doorpost, where we put our Passover blood, and then they do a tradition where blood is involved. So now his blood is mixed with the blood of that household on the doorpost, and he becomes part of that household. Now he can continue his work not as someone who is in debt to them, but as a family member, like Jacob was doing for Laban. He's going to be paid. He's going to live a good life. You have prevented the cycle of someone always being in debt and becoming like chattel, permanent slavery, which the Torah frowns upon. Any questions here?
Does this hint at what the New Testament is referring to?
Give me what the New Testament is referring to, sorry.
What I'm referring to is the about becoming a son. That aspect of it, the adoption.
Give me the verse. The verse is, I'm trying to pick on the verse. Are you looking in the book of John? Who's become a son? Sorry, Yeshua or us?
I'm referring to, it would be us in the adoption, about becoming a son. I'll have to get you a verse. I have to look it up, but that's what I was thinking about as you were referring to this.
Okay, yes, I know what you're talking about. I'm trying to get the verse. I'm trying to get the verse back into my memory. I know exactly what you're talking about. It would come. I know what you're talking about. It would come when you remember it. Let me know and I'll comment on it. But I know what you're talking about. It's just not coming. I'm pulling blanks right now.
Rabbi, when you get a second.
Yes, Mr. David.
Yeah. All right. So with this concept of buying out freedom, or the way out of freedom when you become a slave is from pretty much buying it back. If we apply that concept to Deuteronomy 28:68, that's what it's saying, where we will go back into slavery, we'll sell ourselves as bondmen and bondwomen, but no man shall buy you? Is that saying that no man will free us from the condition that we pretty much put ourselves in?
Beautiful. I didn't want you to say that. We're not in Deuteronomy. When we get there, we'll come back here, look at this custom, and then explain that like it's supposed to be explained.
Beautiful. Thanks. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. But you're on the right track, Mr. David. Mr. David is always ahead of us. That's how he studies Torah. He's always gone, putting puzzles together. So this is what we have here. Okay, now look at what is told to this group here in Exodus 21. Madam Cynthia came up with a better solution. Why don't you give the person something to sustain themselves so they can leave? Well, we are told that in the book of Deuteronomy 15. This is what it says. When you send him forth free from you, that is somebody who was working for you, like we have in the context of Exodus 21. It says, when the person has finished working, on the seventh year they're leaving, you shall not send him forth empty-handed. You shall surely provide him from your flock, from your threshing floor, and from your vat. You shall give him from what Yah, your Elohim, has blessed you. So here in Deuteronomy is saying that the first option is not to make him a family member. The first option is to send him away with items or things that would help him stand on his feet. Why should you do that? Verse 15. You shall remember that you were once in his position, and then I, Yah, came and I redeemed you. I did the same thing for you. So this is what you should do for them. Well, why not say this in Exodus? We'll answer that question shortly. Let's go on. 15. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and Yah your Elohim redeemed you. Therefore, I am commanding you this thing today. And it will be, if he says to you, now we get the clause, I will not leave you, because he loves you and your household. For it is good for him with you. Then you shall take an awl and put it through his ear and into the door, and he shall be a servant to you forever. And also to your maidservant you shall do likewise. Pause there. There's something missing here in Deuteronomy. What is missing in verses 17? 16, 17.
The judges.
The judges. Why are they missing? It's a trick question. They should be missing. They shouldn't be there.
It's a common practice. Everybody already knows what's going on. So you don't have to keep beating the dead horse or keep reminding them. They already know.
Correct. Correct. But why? They already know. You have a point. But why are they missing here? Why are the judges missing, Madam Toy? In Deuteronomy 15, 17, the judges are missing. They said you should just take an awl and put it through his ears and into the door, and he shall be a servant to you forever. Exodus 21. Who are the audience?
The nation.
Exodus, Deuteronomy 15. Who are the audience? Are the audience the same? Exodus 21 and Deuteronomy 15. Are the audience the same?
Rabbi, they're the same.
They're the same? Okay. Does anyone disagree? I disagree. Who are the audience here? Exodus 21.
The ones who came out of Egypt,
Who are the audience here? Deuteronomy 15.
the ones who inherit the land?
Are they the same?
No, sir.
Do we all agree?
That's the generation afterwards.
Why is it accurate that verses 13 and 14 is removed from Exodus 21? It's not there.
I think it's because the adults will have known the culture and the children might not have known, so it was more clear for clarity.
Okay, that's a good point. But there's a better reason why it's not there.
The ancestor.
Yes, go ahead.
The ancestors would be buried in the desert and they were going into the promised land?
You make a good point. Let me explain that. They're on a journey. When someone dies, you bury them. When you leave and you take your dead with you. You don't leave them in the desert. You take your ancestors did the same thing when they were migrating to West Africa. You don't leave your dead behind. You take their bones and then you go with them. So you make a good point. But why is it missing that you send them away with provisions? Why is it missing here in Exodus 21 and it's supposed to be missing? I give you a clue. This command that is being said here, was it ever kept in the wilderness?
No, I don't see how you keep this in the wilderness.
No. No. They're getting information that they're never going to apply. That is that generation. You're speaking to a generation where they are traveling, so they have their dead with them. So their dead are representing the judges or the Elohims, however you want to render it, their powers. So they are readily there. You don't have slaves in the wilderness when you're traveling. Everyone is being provided for, as the text tells us. That is Exodus. Now in Deuteronomy, who are you speaking to?
You're talking to people that's going to settle the land.
And they're going to do what? Apply.
Yeah.
A new audience. They may not have been born, or they were very young in Exodus 21. Because the adults in Exodus 21, they're all going to die off. This new generation is going to enter. So now Moshe is giving them instruction. Same instructions, but the clauses are different because these guys are going to apply them. The first guys is just, what do you call it? Book knowledge. You see how it's different, how the laws are applied, depending on their context. So Moshe is telling these kids who may have been very young or were not born when the event at Sinai happened. So here he's telling them, you guys are going to be the ones settling the land. This is what you're going to do. You're going to have slaves. That is a given. There's always going to be the poor people. When they work for you on the 7th year, when they're leaving, give them something so that they're not slaves forever. Help them stand on their feet. If that is not possible, maybe you don't even have as much as they enough to give out. Give them a chance to be part of the family. Because now they are whatever. They are moving as a unit. But when you settle the land, now it's wide. You can settle anywhere that you want. Now you have household leaders. So my family, the leader of the household will be my dad. Mr. Jason's family, the leader will be Mr. Jason or Mr. Jason's dad. If we are part of the extended family, Mr. Jason doesn't have to come to my place so that this is done. No, Mr. Jason can do that individually because now we are in the land. Back then, they were traveling. In Exodus, no one kept that law. No one kept it. It's in the wilderness. No one has slaves in the wilderness. But here, it changes a bit. The clause changes. the restrictions or what Moshe adds is for those who are going to experience this in reality. That's how the Torah operates. It gives it to the people, then leaves some things that we think it's common sense out because they cannot apply it. But to those who are going to apply it, it makes common sense additions, if I can say that, so that Madam Cynthia won't have an issue with it because now it makes sense. She said, why not give the person something so they leave? Moshe says, yes, that's a good idea. Do that. If that is not the case, now you can follow the laws that I gave your ancestors. They know it. They've passed along. When they see it in heaven, they understand what you're doing. Now you don't need their permission. They don't need to be witnesses standing there or in a family house. We don't need that. Just powerful. I just like the Torah in this way. It covers everything, as Mr. David always says. Look at verses 18. Madam Sonja, ask your question again. Look at verses 18. Why is the judges not in? Yes, so the judges, in Exodus 21, they are traveling with their ancestors. In Exodus 19, they are not because they'll be settled the land. So it's not everyone who's going to bury their ancestors in the compound. You have a cave somewhere and then you go bury them. So the ancestors are not readily, or the judges, the Elohims, are not readily. And then your extended family, they don't need to be present for you to do this, as they would have been present in Exodus 21. In Deuteronomy 19:15, you're going to be settling the land. Where I settle is not the same place that Mr. Jason is going to settle. So I don't have to go rally everybody to come and sit down for me to do this. No, you can do it as the head of your household. You can bring something into your family, your side of the family, or your little clan of the family, however you want to put it. That's why the judges are missing here in Deuteronomy. Look at verses 18. There is a tone there. It says, you shall not be troubled when you send him free from you. For twice as much as a hired servant, he has served you 6 years. Why will someone be troubled to send someone away? Not only sending them away, but sending them away with provisions. Why would someone be troubled?
Because when he initially came on, he owed me money. How he gonna leave? How he gonna leave taking money from me?
Correct? Or maybe the 6 years did not cover the debt. It could be. So the demanding tone of verses 18, while encouraging generosity, also reflects awareness of possible reluctance on the part of the creditors to let their debt slaves go free. Because you should notice this. The person is coming to live in your house, so you're accommodating them, you're feeding them, you're clothing them. You're giving them health care. If they're sick, you need the guy alive to work and pay you off, so you have to take care of him. It's not cheap. Are they going to pay for all that? They would have to. and then pay for their debt. So you see how it's difficult for someone to get out of being a debt slave. So the text comes and Yah says, you were in debt, you were in Egypt, I came and I redeemed you, I didn't charge you anything. It costs me a lot actually. So you too do the same. He says the argument is here. For twice as much as a hired servant, he has served you 6 years. So what is the text comparing this to? If we put it in its context, when we look at the Code of Hammurabi, this is what it says in 117. If a free man, a debt has overtaken him, and he has sold his wife, son, or daughter for money, or else given them over into debt service, they shall work 3 years in the house of their buyer or the holder of their debt service. Their release shall be set in the 4th year. So in their time, when you compare with the laws, it was 3 years to work to pay off the debt. Is that realistic? Maybe not, because of the factors that I've listed. You know, you're accommodating the person, you're feeding the person, you're clothing the person. If the person is sick, you have to, take care of the person. So maybe 3 years is pushing it. So the text comes and says, you know what? Double that 3 years, make it 6 years. So that's why it says, for twice as much as a hired servant. A hired servant works for 3 years. This person has worked for 6 years. It should be enough. Double what the standard is. It should be enough to let them go free because they work double. It's good news when you are the debtor. It's not good news when you are the creditor. Depends on who's looking at it. Mr. D.
The creditor, it should be good news because at the end it says, and the Lord your God will bless you in all you shall do.
Yes, it does. It's I'm trying to say it nicely. So it's hard, it's difficult if you are the creditor and somebody owes you 100 G's and then they work and pay off 50 G's and the text is saying that the 50 G's is 7 years, so they don't have to pay for the 50 G's. You have to let them go, and then you have to give them property worth 10 G's. It means you're 60 G's, 60,000. Oh, it is difficult to tell somebody that Yah is going to bless you. As human, it's difficult for the creditor to hear that. It would be difficult for me. If you tell me that, I'll say I bind you with the blood of Jesus. It's 60 G's. It's 60 G's, 60,000. Yeah, so yes, the text says that, but it'll be difficult. Say it again, sorry? No, I wouldn't say that. Like I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Yes. Don't pray that prayer, please. Go ahead, Mr. D.
Yeah. Could you help me distinguish between him and the bondservant and the maidservant? Because what I'm referring to is, if they have kids, do the kids get an inheritance because they're part of the family?
Yeah, they'll get inheritance from their father, not their master's side. So now their father is going to generate wealth himself. No, so wait. It depends. Yeah, Mr. D asks really technical legal questions. It depends. I take that back. If he brings his wife himself, yes, they're going to inherit from what the father, the one who was in debt. Now they're going to inherit from the wealth that he gathers or he makes. But if the master gives this Hebrew slave a wife, the wife still belongs to the master. The children still belongs to the master. That doesn't change. He can take another wife. Those times polygamy was not frowned upon. If he takes another wife himself, the children and the wife from that side, which is going to be a Hebrew woman, they will benefit from his estate if he passes. So there's a technicality there. Mr. D, are you a lawyer?
Thank you. You cleared that up.
Are you a lawyer?
No. I'm not a lawyer, but I have
very
learned that
technical
everything's in
questions. Wow, that's good. That is good. Awesome. So yes, it's Yah will bless the person if they do this, but that's why you see that the text is saying that yes, you let them go. Oh, I know that they may owe you 60 G's, the 60,000. It doesn't come easy, you know. That is why they were being accused in the Tanakh. The creditors were not doing this. They were not letting the people go in the year of Jubilee because they owed so much money. It's hard to do. And the prophets, was it Jeremiah spoke, or Ezekiel spoke against that. So you guys are not letting the people go in the year of Jubilee. How can I let someone go when he owes me $60,000? And he's paid only 10. It's it's not.
Can't you usurp the rule though? Like you borrow 50,000, but only work off 10,000, and then you got to get out in year 7, and then they still got to leave you. They'll keep you 3,000. So it's like you pretty much get away with the rest of this money. Like I can understand why they look. I don't care about the year Jubilee. I'm not really. You pay me back this money you borrowed. I understand. I totally get it.
Correct. So they were not doing it. But Yah says he will bless you. But as humans, it's hard to let it go and say, hey, why make the blessing that he pays it right now? Let the 60 G's that they owe me drop from the sky, so we're even. But no, he will bless you. Definitely he would. But usually we want to see it like right away. We feel cheated, So it would explain why people wouldn't keep it. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is the creditor a redeemer to a degree? If you put it in the context you're referring to?
Redeemer, correct. But redeeming who? Redeeming who?
Redeeming the person that borrowed the money. To a degree, they owe them a debt. They're only paying partial, and then they're going free and giving them, to a degree, a fresh start. So to a degree, they're a redeemer.
You're playing both roles, actually. Yeah, you're kind of playing both roles. That's difficult. Yeah. So yes, that is what is going on here. The text is saying that they've worked double. So you should let them go. Madam Jew.
Now, the minute you let the person go, even though they owe you the 60 grand, the truth is you just entered into a contract with Yah, who will guarantee he's going to give you what you need letting them go is a vow with Yah to get back more than you gave out. So it's a win-win for the creditor in that aspect. He wins because he got 6 years of work out of you, and then he wins because, of course, he and Yah are going to work the rest of your debt off in whatever way that the father decides. Good deal. That's a good deal.
It is. So how can I'm looking at this actually? How can Madam Toy made a comment in the chat that made me think about this. How can a debtor make this work in his favor? So you know that maybe you have 2 years and the year of Jubilee is going to hit, correct? And then I come to Madam Toy and I say I want 60 G's.
No, thank you.
Madam Toy gives me 60 G's, and then I said, okay, I'm going to work it off. And he says, okay, sure. We start working 2 years, year of Jubilee hits, and she's supposed to let me go.
No way.
You see? So, it's...
I wouldn't have loaned you the 60 G's because I know you were unable to pay me back. I only gave you 2 G's, and then when you pay me them back, then I'll owe you the other 58 later. But not in the beginning because I know you're unable. Because of course that would put you in a predicament, trying to forcing you to work and do things you couldn't do. But I wouldn't put the noose around the borrower's neck or my neck by loaning you way more money than you could ever pay me back in between time of Jubilee. That would be wrong on both people's part.
Correct.
But this is why, okay, Israel.
Say it again, Mr. Jason?
It wasn't like in other places. It wasn't rampant though.
Repeat that, Mr. Jason. You broke up when you started.
I was saying that slavery wasn't rampant in Israel. It was in other places.
Oh, correct. Yes.
You had it, but it wasn't like American slavery, where every plantation owner had slaves. Like it didn't work that way.
Correct. So, and you see, sometimes this is why...
Can you...
Yes, Mr. D, go ahead.
I'm sorry, could you tell me the difference between selling yourself into slavery and selling your land for a period of time?
Yeah, so now you have something that would alleviate you from that debt that you owe, if that's what you're asking. So maybe I owe someone money, but I have property. I have land. So I can let the person take my land and then work it, or use it as collateral, but then it has to come back to me at the year of Jubilee. Everything returns back to its owner. So you're not allowed to sell the land. So if I owe Mr. Jason money and I have land and I sell it to Mr. Jason, I'm not allowed to transfer title to Mr. Jason. No. I can give it to Mr. Jason. He can work it, farm, do whatever he wants to do with it. You know, anything that he grows is his. I don't get any of it to clear the debt. At the year of Jubilee, that land comes back to me. So you cannot sell the family land or whatever to someone else. It always stays in the family. So it's like a lease.
That's the reason.
Yes,
That's the reason I was asking, is because if you're a Hebrew, you should have land on Jubilee or something too. So there's no reason to actually become a bond servant. Would that be correct?
That will be correct. Sorry, the kids distracted me. That will be... No, so... If a tribe, a house, has land, it doesn't mean that individuals in that tribe owns the land. Maybe it was owned by the family. So you have a big extended family. No. Oh, yes, you have a big extended family, and then that family owns land. An individual in the family, cannot go take the family land and then go use it as collateral. No. If I own a personal land, maybe I bought a piece of land, I can use it for that transaction. So we have to distinguish between family-owned land and then lands, private lands owned by family members. Two different. I give you an example. When you're going to buy land in Africa, you have to find out, is this land owned by a family or is it owned by an individual in the family? Why that is important is one person, a family member, can sell you a land that the family owns. You pay for it. You get a title. A year later, one person from that family will come and say, I did not sign off on the land being sold to you. If you take it to court, you would lose. You would have to buy it again from that family member, because the land belongs to the family. If there are 20 people in that family, they would all have to sign off on the purchase of the land. In the same case here, families owned lands. Individuals in families also owned their personal or private lands. You can do whatever you want with your private land or personal land that you own. You can use it as collateral, etc. But the family land, you would need permission from everybody, consent from everybody in the family for you to do anything with that land. So it's not,
when you get a chance.
It's not everybody who would own land. Families will own land, but private parties in that family may not own lands. Mr. David.
Yes, just to clear up Jubilee, or just to get a better understanding of it. That 7-year period is a set 7-year period that's agreed upon, let's say, by the nation itself, based on the calendar system, whatever. It's not a 7-year period based on when this dude start working for you.
Correct. So we already counting Jubilee. We're not counting it from the time you did the loan. No.
Oh man, so we're looking at anything after year 3, no loans are given out then.
That was an issue too.
Loans are pretty much non-existent.
That became an issue too. Because you cannot say, because Jubilee is coming, I'm not going to help this person. You cannot say that. You see, You see how it gets. Just as
dicey.
Correct.
If that's the way it's set up, because year 4 or 5, nobody's doing anything. Everybody's sitting on everything they have and waiting for year 1 again.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And this wasn't rampant though. You see what I'm saying? It's almost like this clause is put into place to prevent that type of treatment. If you're gonna give, just give. Don't make it to where you're trying to include off of it.
Yes.
That's the purpose of it.
Yes. If somebody comes and is Jubilee next week and they need your assistance, if you can help them out, give them and say, yeah, bless you. Don't worry about it.
But isn't part of the...
Say it again, Mr. David?
Sorry about that.
Isn't this part of the...
No, you can go ahead.
Isn't this
go ahead?
Okay. The tithe, isn't that for the homeless, the fatherless, and things like that to help out? You're supposed to do that yearly anyway, especially your family.
Yes. So the poor, the fatherless, the widow, they benefit from the tithes, correct. But I don't think they would sustain somebody, because it's food. Remember, it's food. It's not money. So you're hungry, yeah, maybe you get a lot to eat, but with other things that money is needed, yes, you may have to get a loan or something. Okay, let's move on to the second one. Oh boy. And then we'll do a quick, and then we close. We have a law that also from the ancient Near East that also supports the chattel slave, a non-Israelite, not being, not going with the debt slave. It says if a male slave took a female slave, his desired one in marriage, and that male slave gained his freedom, she shall not leave the house of her owner. So we are not the only one who is saying that. Like I said, the Torah is not written in a vacuum. No, Abraham and all these people kept some of these laws before it's codified. But in the context of the Near East, they have the same thing. If the master gives if a master gives a wife to a slave, somebody working, the slave belongs to the master. So when the worker leaves, they don't leave with the slave because that slave still belongs to the master. So we are not the only one that is saying that. There are laws that predate ours that actually says that as well. So I tell people, when you're bashing the Bible, please do your homework. Don't bash at first. Let's go back to before our Torah was codified, and you would have to bash all those civilizations. Put it in their context, and I mean, what is your argument? Things have changed. We don't do things like they would have done them, but the Torah comes and doesn't write it off completely, but it changes it. It makes it better and says, hey, do it better. Don't treat them as animals, etc. Okay, let's do this quickly and then we'll close today's class. After the text talks about the male Hebrew servant coming to work and blah, 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 now it moves the camera to the woman, a daughter. Question, should we do this next week? I'm looking at the time. Should we do this next week? Should we end here and continue from here next week?
Yes.
Yeah, because this one right here is deep. I have a lot of questions on this.
Okay, let's do that.
This one as well.
Yes, let's do that. Let's do that.
There's a lot going on in these verses, man.
One second. Yes, because if I do it, I would
next week as well.
I would rush. No, we can ask your questions. You can ask the question.
Hey,
but I just didn't want to rush. I just did not want to rush with that one about the female
With that
slave.
Or with this chapter?
No, with a female slave. So yes, I think we should stop here and then we'll do the female slave next week. So yes, questions, contributions, additions.
Madam, I wanted to answer your question earlier. I've been burning the answer all class.
Oh, goodness, excellent. Go ahead then.
Okay, so how I see it from a scriptural lens, we can look at Genesis 15. I think this perfectly places your question, because what we have in Genesis 15 is Yah is saying to Abraham in a vision that I'm going to be your strength. And Abraham replies to Yah and says, but I don't have no kids. So it's like all this, what you're saying to me doesn't matter. I'm going to die and Eleazar is going to have my heritage. So then it says that Yah told Abraham to look up, but I think the Hebrew word there is habetz, which means to look onward. So in this vision, Yah had took Abraham up so that he could see from God's point of view. And then after that, it says that Abraham had faith and trust in God, and God counted it as a merit towards him. So the thing is, when you're looking from outside of your personal lens, because of your own desire and your own limited understanding, it doesn't allow you to have a God view of certain issues. So God wants us to come outside of our personal self so that we can get the wider lens and the wider scope of understanding So then we can make God-like judgments on matters instead of making them from our personal standpoint.
Oh my gosh, Jason, can I contact you off after the class?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Thank you. That's a really good. Oh yeah. Thank you so much. But also,
I think,
sorry.
I also think, you know, how Rabbi told us all the time that, you know, the responsibility of the Torah is given to us, and we are supposed to go teach it, and it's a big responsibility. So I think, in some sense, from your perspective, it's we should now stop looking not exactly of what was actually done to us, but see the bigger picture and start, you know, just improving ourselves in the sense that be more Torah-like, be good, be kind, you know, all the goodness that comes along with that responsibility of the Torah being given to us, do it. So don't just look within ourselves now, but look at beyond the bigger responsibility, the bigger picture that we have to move forward so that our light can shine.
This is so interesting, and that's why I didn't want to put a context to it, because I wanted to see what everyone, who had their own thoughts on what they thought that would mean. So when Jason said, "Look up," I've heard that said to me quite a few times, like in my dreams and in sort of in your mind. And I've been trying to understand, I kind of knew what it meant, but hearing Jason put it in that context makes a lot more sense to me. But there's someone else that said something, and I don't know if the person's still on at the moment, and it was Kenneth Oates. Kenneth Oates, are you there? I think he's gone. And MB Bassi, I kind of like your one, and also Barden and Amaah and David Israel, because they all give perspectives that resonate with why I was asking that question. So if we have time, Brother Akwetey, do you think these people, you can give them a chance to expand on what they meant by what they have said? If that's okay with you?
Hi, this is Marie. Rabbi just called me and said he had to step aside to take care of the baby for a little bit, so he won't be able to answer you until for another 10 minutes, but you can continue your conversations.
Yeah, okay, this is good. So can I get Epi Bassi, H. Barden, David Israel, and Amaah to expand a little bit on what they meant by what they had written earlier?
Efe, before you do that, can I just ask a quick question? Toya,
Yeah, sure.
because I had it on mute, like, so I didn't hear anything. I was on the phone with somebody, so I missed a bit. But Toya, you said all simply would choose. Could you explain that to me, please? I missed it. Toya, girl.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was writing in the chat. No, I was just I was referring to when Brother Basil asked if we should wait, and I have made the comment that yes, because I need to make sure that my female energy and the ancestors are there to respond when he was saying he wants to talk about the woman's role in slavery and all that stuff. So that's all. And then someone said yes, and then I said yes. And I said, as Cynthia would choose, and then I put your emoji. That's all that was. The emoji that you always use for us.
Cool. Sorry, I thought I missed something that he said to me or someone said to me. Sorry, I had it on mute, so I had to take a quick pause. So sorry, Efe, you know, my apology.
Hello, Efe. Is it possible to get is MB Bassi still around? And this is me, MB. Can you expand?
The comment that I wrote was because I think I was going through something really crazy, and I was in a bad way. And it's become my process of self-actualization whenever I'm in a circumstance that I don't seem to understand, is to understand, because this came across on, I think they said it from the Talmud or Laos, whatever, I can't remember. It says that we, as individuals, don't see things the way that they are. We see things the way that we are. So in any circumstance, you have to kind of see where you are in your own spirit to look out, to be able to see. It allows other people to be, you to let other people to be who they are. When you set yourself outside, or you go in that whole process of self-actualization and seeing things the way they are instead of the way you are personally as an individual. You know, if I'm having a bad day or if I'm being grumpy, everything I see is going to be viewed through that lens of that day. If I'm, you know, in a wonderful mood, you know, the whole day, because that's the lens that I'm looking through is me. So in that, I can allow other people to be who they are because I don't know what lens they are seeing, you know, through in every day, you know, and I can adjust my lens and say, okay, how am I going to be in this? You know, how am I going to, you know, when I'm looking outside of myself, who am I going to be? Because I'm seeing this the way that I am instead of seeing it the way that other person is, or, you know.
Like a sacrifice, would you say? Like sacrificial, like put yourself aside kind of thing?
Yes, see things the way that they actually are happening instead of the way you feel that they are. So, and it becomes kind of like a daily thing where you just say, you know what, I gotta see this from a different lens, through eyes that are different, because I can't just say, well, this is the way it should be because that's, you know, the way I feel about it. It's not. You know, there are different lenses. So that was it. But thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. How about, hey, Barden? Mr. Barden, are you there? Or Mrs. Barden? Are they there? David Israel, anyone? Want to expand on it?
David has left the chat.
Has he left the chat? Marie, how do you see that question? Because the reason why I want to ask you is because quite a few times you've come on and there seems to be a lot of pain when you talk about your brothers and sisters in general, Israel, and you try to understand. You say what you feel is going on, but then maybe the response is not a response that would make you feel like too happy, would I say? So that question comes up again. How do you see that question then, seeing beyond yourself or looking beyond yourself, from your perspective of how you see your brothers and sisters and what their lives are like now and what their lives were like before?
I appreciate what, okay, hold on, there's an echo.
It's probably me.
I think what Miss Massey talked about is very much correct. I think it's sometimes difficult for me to check myself when I see the bigger picture, and I don't know, I think I'm very sensitive to our situation. I think part of the problem for me is when I look at our people just worldwide and I see the things that are going on the continent, and I see the things that are going on here, and I wonder if we it just seems that a lot of us are missing the mark, as in we're not we're not putting ourselves first. We are still in that narrative of them against us kind of thing. And I think for me, what I yearn for is for people to recognize who we are and the power that we have as a nation, as a people. And we're not seeing that. And so sometimes when I think about it and I think about the future, I wonder how long it will take for us to come to that place where we can see our value instead of measuring ourselves against others, to find our value. And I think that's where my despair comes from. Because I know that I feel very powerful. I feel very proud to be a daughter of Abraham. And I wish so much for especially our men to see their value, that they are so much more than they think they are. And I think that's where I want it so badly. I want it to happen in my generation. And the despair comes in when I come to the conclusion that Rabbi is probably so right that it may not happen in my generation. So I'm pouring into my son and bringing out his gifts and showing him that he is royalty and he should not capitulate to anyone if he knows that he's in the right, and to stand in the power of Abraham's forefathers and know who he is. And I desire for our men to get to that place, because I think once our men get to that place, the whole family unit will be pulled together in a way that is so cohesive that none of this garbage that's happened to us as a people for so many generations will ever happen again. And that's where my soul desire is, in that place. So that's where I sometimes get really emotional when I think about it, because I want it so badly to happen, but I realize that everyone has a process to go through. So that's it.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear your perspectives on things regarding looking beyond yourself. And I think for you, you carry a lot of the hurts that our brothers and sisters are going through. And that's a good thing, because there has to be someone there that is empathetic in that sense and always crying up to the Most High. And maybe that's what you're supposed to do, always remind the Most High that his children are suffering still till today, and suffering in all aspects of what a normal life is. A lot of us don't experience that, what a normal life should be. There's a lot of suffering in Israel. So Marie, I thank you for your tears, your emotions, your crying out to the Most High. And maybe that's your looking beyond yourself. And I do hope that you do find, or we all do find that solace this year, next year, but hopefully soon. So thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I see that Mr. Barden is back, so if he could bear in on the conversation if he feels like it.
Oh, Mr. Barden. Oh, it's a Mr. Barden. Mr. Barden, are you there? Maybe he doesn't want to say. Mr. Barden? No? All right then. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your feedback. And yeah, Jason, how do I contact you? I don't think I've got your number.
Oh, you could take my number down. It's fine.
Yeah, can I do that now, or do you mind putting it up there? Or do you want to write it in the chat? What do you?
I'll put it. That's fine.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any other comment based on the discussion today that they'd like to discuss?
Are we on YouTube still? guys?
I believe so.
Do you want us to get off of YouTube before we start getting in?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
have a way.
Yeah, Rabbi will have to end his stream when he gets
Yeah.
back on. I'll wait for you to end it on your end.
Okay.
But I do have a statement about what we're studying today because it's very interesting. I had a conversation because I often post on my Facebook page and I said that the slave masters and us could not have been serving the same God. And a couple of my friends on the other side commented in and was like, you know, you always posting that we don't serve the same God. And, you know, they was like, why are you posting this? We need to be bringing unity instead of division and all this other garbage. So I was explaining to them, I said, when I make a statement about we're not serving the same God, I'm coming from the actual scriptures. You know, so then I started asking them questions and I actually used this scripture to show that the slavery that we experienced here in America was not the same biblical slavery. You know, and one thing that I'm learning too is that people are not well studied, which presents a lot of problems when you get into like discussions about this stuff. Like some of the friends that I talk to about it, like they have no idea of the background and historical history of the time. So when they read it, they just read the words and interpret them as if, you know, Moses is talking yesterday, or as the children of Israel was in the wilderness yesterday. And it presents a lot of issues. Does anybody else have that issue when trying to discuss some of those things too?
I think for me, Jason, I think it's even for me, I can extend it in the sense that I don't even think about, I don't have that type of conversations with people really in that context. But I think what I've come to realize, that I look at it not just from the slavery point of view, but I think when a country comes and takes over another country, even when you look at the Torah about how I call him the King Nebs, as everyone knows him, took over and he got the different parts of Israel to pay tribute. I think that the way that they got Africa to pay tribute was not in line with Torah, you know, and the tribute that we're still paying now is not still in line with what Yah expects in terms of you expect someone to, when you take over, you conquer someone and they pay tribute. They're almost treating how I feel that what they took this on is like a bit like the Hunger Games. You know, they went too far. The Hunger Games, what it reminds me of, where they want you to literally die for your tribute. But tribute was never supposed to be like that. Tribute was set, and I say that because of the fact that people say things like the new way of slavery is through the they call it neo imperialism or neo what do you call it, guys? Neo-colonialism. And Africa is under that. But, you know, you've got a country like France that's getting 80 to 90% of their income from an African French country. That's tribute. You know, and it's unacceptable tribute at that. So I don't just look at it from the slavery point of view where our people was taken to slavery, but also the fact that there's another arm of the tribute side, which really gets to me, where Africa is still paying tribute, and they shouldn't be.
Yeah, Haiti is too. Haiti is paying off tribute too. It's just for me just to see, and this is why I say I'm glad you brought that up. This is why I say that we can possibly serve the same God, but the things and the conditions that we're under is actually forbidden in Torah. Like I just don't understand. You see what I'm saying? Like I don't understand how one could think that their God that they use out of the Bible and the actual God of the Bible is the same thing. I don't get it. To me, it's mind blowing.
Jason, if I may comment on that, I sort of agree with you, especially your first comment when you said when you're speaking to people and they're not learned. And I think we can probably attribute that to church and depending on a pastor, not to speak against pastors, but our lack of ability to study on our own as far as in-depth study and realizing that what was given to us Was it the real thing? Or should I say the inability to know that we don't know what we don't really know? So when you post something like that, what I found out, people have a tendency to think you're more or less attacking their quote unquote religion. But what you're saying, I definitely, without a doubt, agree with you on that aspect, because I've tried to have conversations, and I sort of address them maybe somewhat like you, but don't have your knowledge, but I try to address them from the perspective that I understand, that will help someone else understand when they have a tendency to challenge me with what I'm doing. And basically, I just go back to the word and try to explain it from that perspective. But even within showing them what they're saying and what I'm doing lines up more with Torah, scripture, or even Jesus, if that's what they're doing, but they still, for whatever reason, it's like they diss it. And whatever it is I'm doing, it's like some type of hypocrisy or something. I can't quite grasp it.
Do you know what?
But yeah, I do understand what you're saying.
Sorry, Philip. I think I like what Toya said. I think when she said in the chat, she goes, I don't tell people they're serving a different hour versus they misinterpreted the text and are not serving correctly. They might as well not be following. Like people who say the Quran is a different hour, that is highly incorrect. Sorry, Toya, please explain on that, babe.
But Cynthia, a lot of times I'm not telling them they aren't serving. What they do is they tell me I'm not serving.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that about you. I'm just asking for Toya to explain on that.
Okay. Because normally I try to stay away from conversations regarding what I do, but the curiosity is basically what I find gravitates them to basically what I do or how I do it.
Right?
Yeah. The biggest thing is
I'll speak after Mr. Morgan.
Say it again.
No, I saw Cynthia. I'll hear what I was saying after you. Go ahead and speak.
Oh no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
So you can go ahead because my daughter she's calling me anyway. So you go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'll try to be brief. Yeah, it's a lot to say with this, but I think if anything is the approach. The approach is very important. At times, when you're speaking to individuals, you also have to remember, like, anytime you learn something new, you really want to share it with. That's just the nature of mankind. You want to share it, or at least majority of us. But then you also have to realize that there's a way in which you have to be able to deliver that information. And at times, people aren't ready for what you may want to deliver. So now you have to kind of give it in little pieces, and sometimes you may feel like this, you're already giving it in a small piece. How much more can I deliver it? And so then you also realize that it's not like you're talking to someone who is just ready to sit there and listen and absorb like you may be, because you are already open and you're ready for that. So then the other person, they already have all of these, previous thoughts, you know what I mean? They've already been taught this and taught that, and they already, might want to throw away the Bible and things of that nature. Like, for example, I was on the plane earlier this week. I flew back into Georgia, and I was on the plane. I was sitting next to this young lady, and she wants to be in, she's into like acting and theater and things like that. And she hadn't seen her mother in 3 years. I was like, wow. And she just like separated herself from her mom. Some things had happened. And, it was like her sitting there with me. She was revealing some things. This happens a lot. Like, I'll just be somewhere and people just tell me everything. And, so we're talking about that, and I'm just giving her examples after examples, telling her. It's so funny that Jason brought that up about the Abraham, because I used that same thing I was like, you know, you have to look at life from a bird's eye view at times, you know, because when you do that, you can now see yourself on earth and look at your situation and see how you can improve from where you are. Because once you're in the situation, then you can't really think outside of that. But when you see the bigger view, the panoramic, you can see, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing right here. But look, this is where you need to go in order to solve this problem. So anyways, we had, you know, lots of those kind of like conversations, and then it came to a point where she was like, you know, saying, you know, she grew up in a Catholic family and, you know, things of that nature. And like, she don't like this, she doesn't like that. And I was like, well, you know, I won't say to throw away the Bible, you know, I know it's because you've, you know, had some understanding. She brought up Egyptian stuff, and I was like, I study that too. We can talk about that if you want. But I was just like, you know, I'm not here to try to convert you to anything, but these things that I, you know, discussed earlier, and you know, you like those things, you like the way we looked at it. I like those things are extractions from the Old Testament, like the lessons. So it's like taking an approach where you say nothing of Torah, like say nothing to be like, oh, this is Old Testament or God this and God that. You just teach the lessons. If there's a way you can teach the lessons without having to bring that up, and then later on you can bring it up, that also, you know, that's like another approach. Because at times, as soon as you say God, people equate that with religion. And that's just their natural tendency because of what they learned. And so once we continue to do things like that, or now we're attacking, they feel like, you know, they're being attacked, or you say, hey, you know, we're not worshiping the same God, it now opens up for a conversation. But then the conversation that you're having with someone, is this a person that is willing to be open to what you are saying, or are they not open to what you're saying? And now you're going to be going back and forth, and you might get upset because they're not wanting to learn. But then the wisdom kicks in and says, well, you know what? Patience. When I was around that time, maybe I would have done the same thing, you know? So for me, I don't so much get into those conversations like that because you know, time is just so precious, you know? And then next thing you know, you'll be like, why am I even wasting this time right here? Because I could be doing something else, like with my thoughts, you know? So, but I say if that happens, then I'll be like, you know what? That person really needed that. But I'm not going to do this every day. I'm not going to, you know, it's just so many other things that we could be doing. And at the end of the day, what's really, really, really important is teaching, you know, having an educational foundation. Like there's so many things that we need to be able to do as a community where we are discussing some of these matters. Like there's some things that have happened where, such as slavery, our own brothers selling us, right? We see it all the way back with, you know, Joseph. We see it all happen in West Africa. We also see that our own brothers as well in America is still to this day administering street pharmaceuticals, and it gets glorified. So we need to have so many conversations. We also have issues where someone rises and they're now rich or wealthy or affluent, and what they say are things like, oh, you don't have no money like me. Like 50 Cent would say, talk bad about another rapper because he doesn't have the hottest car, or, you know, these are things that we need to be discussing, like the principles, the morals, and show how things could go in the wrong direction, how jealousy can arise, how, you know, envy, all of these things that we need to engage in our community, how a young man can simply Just at the traffic light, road rage, someone can get out the car and someone, men, testosterone, someone can simply get stabbed or shot just from a silly conversation because of road rage. So these are things that need to be conversations that need to be had, and so many more. How to vote, all of those things, how to operate, how to gain economic freedom. It's so many of these conversations that we need to have. It just, the list goes on. Like someone who moves out of the ghetto, they move out of the ghetto, and then now, how does that person feel who's still in the ghetto? Maybe it's a family member or a friend. They feel like, oh, this person forgot them. This whole crabs in the barrel, conversation. And then that person who's out of the ghetto may want to come back, but then people may want to rob this person because this person has more money now. So we have to have these conversations for both sides, both the one who's still living in the ghetto, the one who's out of the ghetto. Do you think you're better than this person because you're out of the ghetto? And then this person who still lives in the ghetto perceives this person differently. And sometimes the person who moves out of the ghetto, then they might have had a conversation with the person while they were in the ghetto, and they might have said something like, oh, you ain't got no more money than me, but this is how they joked around. And then when they move out and they get rich, they say the same joke, but the person who's still living in the ghetto says, oh, this person changed. Not so much, because this is the same conversation you would have had while both of you were in the ghetto. So now, these are some things that we really, really like. There's rape that happens. There's, so many things. We have to have these conversations. And I'm still working on developing the platform for such a thing. It's been a journey. I have to say that it's been a journey. So many things going on. I'm just, trying to eat, what's on my plate slowly, and these are the things we have to have. We have to have these conversations in order to really and truly and fully understand it. There's this other conversation that we are, we're continuously looking at the oppressors, and I'm like, it is not the oppressor that's the issue. It is us. It's never been the oppressors. It is us that is doing all of these things ourselves. They are wrong for what they're doing, but if we do not solve these problems from within, for example, there's this movie Apocalypto. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but I'm gonna try to finish up soon. There's this movie Apocalypto. In the beginning of the movie, there's this very powerful quote where it says, "A civilization is not destroyed except from within." That is so powerful because Israel, no civilization cannot be destroyed from an outside civilization unless within themselves they were already destroying themselves. And that is the same case that has been going on with us. Same cycle has been going on with us because the prophets are trying to warn them, trying to tell us to do this, and we're destroying ourselves. We're over here glorifying cocaine, crack, all of these things. This is destructive. This is destructive in our nature. Why, when we're glorifying crime, killing, murder, we're doing all of these things, and then we want to say Black Lives Matter. And what we don't understand is this. This isn't a reflection. When we're seeing these killings happening from people outside of us, we're blaming those people. But what we're not looking at is Yah is trying to tell us this is a reflection of what we are doing within our communities, but we do not see it. suppose the Caucasians stop killing us. All right, cool. But what's happening still? We're still killing each other. All right, that's my last.
Can I add something?
May I ask you a question? May I ask you just one question? What, you used the word ghetto. Ask you a question. What's the difference between ghetto and poverty? Or is there a difference? Because you used the word ghetto. So I need to ask you, what's the difference between those two, if there's a difference?
Okay,
Well,
so
ghetto is a place, really.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a place.
so yeah, so I'm just using ghetto as an area that is considered impoverished. Like, for example, in certain parts of America and different places, they may not use ghetto outside of America. But let's just use America for example. Let's say, right, I lived in Newark, New Jersey, right? And different parts of Newark, New Jersey are considered to be ghetto. Now, and that is because there's a lower socioeconomic status there. Now, the area, the place, what contributes to a place being ghetto is because of that, the lack of resources, lower socioeconomic status. Now, if others, right, move in, let's just say when gentrification occurs, this area that was considered a ghetto is no longer considered a ghetto because there are more resources being being provided into that community, and they're also upbringing that community. Like, for example, someone may buy something from the corner store, buy a can of soda, drink the can of soda, the garbage is right there, they throw it on the ground. Now, these things contribute to the appearance of what is called the ghetto. Now, so, you know, all of these things contribute to it. Now, because the people who are living there, the way in which they may look at life is of a poor mindset. Because money is not a problem. Money has never been a problem. The problem is our mindset in which we can attain those things, those monetary things, and not understanding that, hey, we need to work together here so that we can say, you know what, let's own these stores in the ghetto, and we can bring up this thing that is considered to be the ghetto. We can make the ghetto the richest place. But our mindset, it is that thing that makes it difficult for us to attain that. I don't know if I was able to.
If you're going into a bank, if you're a black person or if you're a person of color, and you go into a bank, and they give you a loan at a higher interest, they're not lending you money. That gentrification is not happening based on the black dollar being not put back in the black community. You can't go into business on air. You know what I'm saying? Gentrification happens because of the redlining, because of the disenfranchisement and marginalization of a community.
Right.
And sometimes I think we forget about the bell curve. Sometimes I think we forget about, you know, there's a 10% on one end and a 10% on the other end, and not all of us are in these circumstances that are ghetto, poverty, whatever, what have you. That's a certain portion of the population, that side of the bell curve. And I think a lot of us see, and what's put out there is that portion of the bell curve. It's not necessarily the entire 13%. We're only 13% of this population. 13% of the population can swing the entire end result of an election. I mean, look, we gotta really put it into perspective here. I mean,
Yeah, I
there's
agree.
I agree. I'm not when I talk about the ghetto, I'm just giving an example. Like if you listen to what I'm saying, I gave a lot of examples.
Who are poor, right?
The reason,
Pardon?
Yeah, he said
know that
ghetto,
they
but I don't think he implied at all that the 13% of us are all in the ghetto.
yeah, the
No,
reason
yeah,
I
I'm not.
asked that
Yeah, I
question,
don't want.
He didn't say we all were the ghetto. That's not what he said.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I'm
gentrification
not.
itself is not a white thing. Gentrification
Right.
itself is happening all over this country by black people.
Yeah, there's blacks, there's Latins, there are white, there are Caucasians who are living on welfare. You know, like that.
more of them are.
Yeah, there are actually more of them. You know,
Yes.
so and a lot of people don't know. I mean, people would call them poor white. But I don't want to say that. But um, I'm talking about blacks. You see, because when I speak, I like to talk about my community first and then another community. That's just because of how I grew up, is that you need to clean your backyard before you clean someone else's backyard. So every time we have these conversations, our black people are always talking about white people, or people outside of our community. And what I'm saying is we need to help everybody. However, like if there was a hurricane that happens and a hurricane hits my house, my household, and let's just say I'm younger, I'm living in my parents' house. Hurricane hits my household, tree falls on the yard, does some damage. Now there's someone else down the street, maybe it's a friend or a cousin. They could be, a same hue as you. If it's a friend, or it could be of another hue that live down the street. They have the same kind of damages. Which one are you going to help first? Are you going to do? You're going to pertain? Are you going to cater to the damages of your house first, or are you going to cater to the damages down the street? So the way I grew up is you're going to take care of the damages of your household first. Then you can go, because you essentially have the same damages. Now, if I say there's some damages there and in your household, and there's some damages down the street, but there's somebody who's stuck in the tree. The tree is essentially on somebody, right? There's some trauma. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to just be like, well, I got to clean my backyard first before I can go and help that person? No. So I want to be clear of this. If that person is down the street or around the corner, it's your same hue, your cousin, different hue, it doesn't even matter. You need to go and help that person. These are things that we need to understand. Like, people at times take things out of context, and it's like, no, all I'm trying to say is let us do for us as we are doing for us. You can still help any nation outside of that. That is the point. But if we do not, for example, China is going to do for China. Like, we don't understand this concept. We are in this nation and we are trying to think about it like we are all one nation. Yeah, we are all one nation, but this is many nations within a nation. And because we're not thinking about it as we are one nation, like a black nation, because there's all these different, religions, all these different things that separates us, ideologies. So we at least need to come together with those things and say, all right, let's do this for us. So, but yeah, I don't want to keep going. Yeah, I think you wanted to say something. Someone else wanted to say something?
The point
I
that I
agree
was,
with what you're saying. For the most part, I mean, just real quickly, because I was about this, I like to be long with it. But I do want to point out that we do, as a people, we should always know our history, and some of that history is still current, of course, when we talk about redlining and the financial disadvantages that we have when it comes from big businesses, banks, things like that. But I think the point that he's making, which I 100% agree with, is financial literacy is not handed to a people from their oppressor. It is up to that people to know and learn the ways of their lands that they're in, on how to survive in that land. Group economics does not have anything to do with redlining. You do not need a loan from a bank to practice group economics. We have to get past that hurdle. We do not have to depend on other people to give us money in order to become financially free or better ourselves within a society. Would it be nice? Yes, of course it would. But if we don't go forward in doing things, we can't sit here and be like, well, I can't get this house because the bank won't give me no money, and that's just it. So I'm just gonna rent forever because I have no other choices. There are other choices, but we have to be able to, like he said, we have to fix some things within us first, so we can move on past that and stop necessarily thinking that the only way out is through, the oppressor, or however you want to call it. That's not the only way out. Now, when it comes to like reparations and all that things, we have to know the history so we can be able to tell the story on why we should receive certain things. But waiting in a standstill for those things is not going to help us or get us anywhere in this moment. And that's what we're trying to do. I can't wait around for reparations. Will I be there for the argument on why and for the fight to get it? Absolutely. But I'm not going to stand here and wait for it until I do anything. You know what I'm saying? I make my money go a long way with people that I know around me. Some of these people that I didn't know from Adam, you know what I'm saying, in the beginning. But I had to figure out and allow myself to take that leap. Like, we have to take that leap. And like, I think that's a big part of his point, is a lot of the issue is with us, ourselves. You have to work that out for yourself or stay stuck.
Yep, true.
I agree.
If I may make one more comment on that, when I asked you about impoverished and ghetto, it's because I went into that situation as an adult working. Fortunate enough, I didn't live in that situation, so I didn't have really a concept of, I would say, a ghetto life or an impoverished life. But my mental concept of people who lived in there was, I guess, from the other side of the fence perspective. But when I went in there and started working, I realized that everybody that lived in the ghetto was not impoverished. Right. And I have a tendency to see people, when they talk about the ghetto, it's such generalization. A lot of these people do want to get out. I don't know much about the rappers and what they rap and what they say, because that's just not a area of my interest. So I don't really know about that. But I do know that as a person who went to college, as a person who was afforded a lot of things growing up, I still was impoverished financially because I didn't have the financial literacy, which is, like you all said, because it's not a part of our daily lives. So you could have a lot of things, not live in the ghetto, and still be impoverished in certain areas of your life, but having the desire to want to know more. And just like Toy said, basically, I sat with people that didn't look like me because they had the information. And then when I got the information, I tried to bring it on the other side of the fence. And believe it or not, I was rejected by more people who were like me, who had the education, who did this and did that, turned it off. But it was easier giving it to the people who didn't have the education, who lived in the so-called ghetto, because they do want to get out. And I just have a problem with, when we single them out, and we have a tendency just to identify, and not all of us, but we have some tendencies to identify them in such a general term, just like white America, which is, I don't think is fair to people who are impoverished, that live in this area that is labeled a ghetto, but they don't have a ghetto mentality. They want better. They just don't know how to get it. A lot of times they don't know. And when you work in 2 and 3 jobs, and I got this from their parents, it's hard sometimes to take that time out and go and try to see the resources. So when we're coming up with programs, and see, the thing about most of these programs, they're not bought into these areas by us. They're bought into these areas by those other people who have no idea of what these people really need. And because we don't have the money to go in there and help, we just sort of have to, go along with whatever it is that they've written. I wrote a program. It was called Redirecting America's Youth. And I tried to take my years of social work and being an educator, put it together, and try to expand upon it of what I thought some of the needs were. But then when you get a social worker who doesn't make enough money, see, it's like a revolving circle. And you have to touch each branch of that circle, each circumference of that circle to close it. So when you were saying that, like, I agree with what Jason said, I agree with what you said, I agree with Toy said. So there's so many aspects, and I think we all, to a certain point, are in agreement that we need to help each other. That's the problem. Now, what's the solution? Because we could beat the problem for days, but how do we come by with a viable solution? How do we get together, this group as a whole, to bring about change, to bring about a solution, to educate our people that want to know? How do we do that? To me, that's more the conversation and realizing where we lack in our own thinking. Because I said, when I came out of my environment, went into their environment, I had my own pre-notions about what was going on in their environment. But I was so wrong because I didn't live like that. And that's a problem in itself. Because I didn't live like them, I didn't think like, and when I say them, I mean people who lived in impoverished, in those areas that we label ghetto or in a poverty situation, financially. So because I didn't live like that, I had no idea of what they needed. 10-year-olds doing strong arm robbery. I was 10, I was playing with dolls. I can't relate, could not relate. I think this is what's happening a lot of times when programs are written for our communities. They have no clue of what these children need. And we don't sit on the boards of a lot of these programs.
Exactly.
So therefore we cannot direct funds the way they need to be directed. And that was basically the reason why I asked that question, Brother Marvin.
Yeah, no
problem. I just want to add to that last part that you said, which I feel is very important, and I stress it to everybody I come across when the topic comes up. In our community, a lot of times we have, especially with this, election that just passed, and everything, we get a lot of, we're not supposed to vote, and this and this and this and that. But what she just said is very important for people to really understand. A lot of times we complain that the schools are doing our kids wrong and the public system is this and this and this and that. But a lot of the things that go on in school, including the teaching that is done, the funds and everything, that happens with a school board. The school board is voted upon. The people in the community vote that school board in. So if you don't want to vote for a president, that's fine. But there are still local things that you should be voting on, especially if your kids go to public school. These things are important. This is what I say about you just sit there and wait for something to change, but you don't want to take part in the change. Some things you have to take part in. Otherwise, you shouldn't speak about it. You shouldn't complain about it. You shouldn't cry that somebody's doing something to you if you have done nothing to try to change it at all. So that, I just want to say that. That's very important to me. School boards are voted on. Find your school board. Know who's running for your school board. If you don't like who's on that school board, find who in that community wants to run for the school board or has an interest, or motivate those people within your community that may be afraid to run because they feel like there's just no chance because their people won't support them. We have to get behind our own people in many areas to get them in places that we need them to be. If we don't vote for them to get into those places, then we can't keep saying, well, the senators, they're the oppressor, and they this and this and this and that. There are so many states and cities with mayors and senators that are running that look like us and that have the same opinion as us. But most people wouldn't know that because they don't take the time to learn who those people are. And then the voting comes, and then they don't vote, or they just vote aimlessly because they don't recognize any of the names because they don't take the time to research who those names belong to. Sometimes we pass up people that look like us and agree with us simply because we just don't know who they are, but their names are right there on that ballot. We have to pay attention.
Madam Toy, absolutely correct. Ms. Myers, I just wanted to state this, you're absolutely correct. We just voted for the school board here in Burlington with the last election, right? Check this out. You have many people voting across the aisles because you have some Republican school board members who are very good and some Democratic school board members who are very good. The people here are very involved with the school board here in Alamance County where I stay at. But this is why stuff gets done in Alamance County, not just for, it gets done for all races of students, all kids. Like, it's astonishing for me to see how when the people actually put their voice forward, that these people who are in charge act because they want to stay in power. They want to stay on the school boards. They want to stay as county commissioners. So if you're not doing the things that is necessary, we're going to vote you out of here. But we don't understand that that's the power we're supposed to be using. We've been conditioned to complain about issues and not put our foot into the ground and get things done. This is the same thing happened with Israel. They're at the river, the Sea of Reeds, and they crying out to God. God says, stop crying out to me. Stick the stick out and walk across the water. Go. Because a lot of times we don't understand that we have the power in our hands. Stick the stick out, keep it moving. But we don't understand that though, because we've been conditioned to think otherwise. You have to get involved in your locality. Forget it, the president is an international advisor. That's why he's always going to countries and setting peace treaties, because that's what the United States of America president is. He is a foreign negotiator. That's his job title. Look it up. But the local people that run the city, that run your state, you need to know who they are, and we vote, and things will change. And also, too, I grew up in the ghetto. I grew up in North New Jersey on Prince Street in the projects. Used to be called PSP, Prince Street Projects.
That's right.
But they had the pissy hallway buildings. I grew up in the hood. Listen, a lot of the people that I grew up with in the hood were great people. They had great families, husbands and wives and everything. We make it seem like these people were like Feed the Children Network. That's not true. Yo, our Thanksgiving, our block parties stuff used to be lit. It's bad now, but when I was coming, what? Hey, yo, we going outside. We be outside all day just playing, having a good time. Fight. You be friends again the next day. So growing up in the hood, for me, I have some of the greatest memories of my life growing up in the hood. Because why? When you inside that situation, you don't see it as poverty. You just grow up with kinfolk. Now, another thing is too, we have to get educated. As a statistician, you have to get educated on numbers. Because when you listen to those people on television, you'll be confused, okay? Understand this. The African American in America alone is the 5th wealthiest nation in the world. I repeat, the African Americans in America, we're not talking about the African continent. We're just talking about African Americans in America. We're a $1.7 trillion nation of people. Don't tell me we don't have wealth. We do. We have wealth. So let's go over that. Because God tells us that when we return to him, he's going to bless us in any nation that we're in. Deuteronomy chapter 30 and 31. He tells us that. So we were past that stage of we don't have, we do have. The issue we do is it's coming together, pulling things together, and working together. Now, mind you, African Americans, we're only 16% of our population is in poverty. If you look at the television, you'll think it's 90% of us. That's a lot. We have the #1 most educated women in the world. We do have an issue with the men, but the women are very educated. Fathers are returning to the homes. We got to get rid of this myth. We have to stick to what's going forward now and work on it. Because if you're receiving your information from the news and from Wikipedia, you're going to be in a world of trouble.
Lost.
Fake news?
You gotta look at the scientific data. Go to the Department of Treasury, United States, the Department of Statistics. Look at the data. We're doing great. There's a reason why the slogan "Make America Great Again" exists. Because you're starting to see a lot more other people on crack cocaine. You're starting to see a lot more other people get into poverty. This is not by coincidence.
Right.
But you're starting to see that it's dwindling in our community. Now, we do have pockets of areas where it is a mess. Pockets, okay? Not everywhere. We want to make it seem like it's everywhere. We have one of the wealthiest nation of people in Washington. Not Washington, outside of Washington and Maryland. Like black people are winning. It's just that we're trying to get all of us to win. And that's what these conversations coming at. But we don't need to take the mentality that we're still victims. We're not victims. Remember what has happened? America still owes us. We'll deal with that later. Because they paid the slaves, they paid the slave owners after slavery. They gave them reparation, a wage law.
Big facts.
Facts. They owe us. We getting our money. The people are like, oh, you just want America. Nah, dog. That's the law of the land. You gonna pay us. Whether I get it or my kids get it, one of us get it. You paying somebody.
For real.
You pay master them. You're gonna pay us. So besides that, until that time comes, we're still building. Black people are owning businesses. See, one thing that is a misinterpretation that I believe that you get, when I'm gonna say a misinterpretation, it's just a different understanding, right? When we quote Deuteronomy 28 and 68, we like to talk about them being sold into slavery. That's incorrect. It says you will sell yourselves. Number two, it also says that when you sell yourselves, you won't be employable. So the lands that we were going into, it's not just us in America, our ancestors too, when they were in Babylon and things of that nature, they didn't want to hire them. So what did they do? They started their own businesses. That's how you do it. You start your own business, create your own wealth, return to Torah. Then you'll see the unemployment rates drop. Why? Because then I can hire my own brother if I have something. So it's a process. You're starting to see this more and more often. Pay attention to some of the things that Jay-Z is doing. How they're sponsoring Black-owned businesses, things of that nature. People may hate them. You may think they with the Illuminati, all this other stuff. Forget all that. Let's just look at their record and what they're doing. Paying for Black men to be able to vote. 90,000 Black men were able to vote because of Jay-Z this election. These are the things that we need to be doing. These are tangible things we need to be doing. Because we're coming up out of this stuff. That's what our focus needs to be on. We coming up out of it. All right, let's start setting up stations so those who are under that are still starting to wake up, when they wake up, we are already in position to help them.
Right on. Exactly.
And to add to what he said about statistics, because I love statistics too, we as a people, we have to be more educated in these statistics, because I think sometimes the mental, our thought process gets a little bit hurt and discouraged when we hear things like that. So, I mean, it's important for us to know that when they say, Black men make up 56% of the murders, done in America, that's a fact. But you should also know that the number of murders that happened in 2019 were like 12,000. So that 56% is only like 6,000. Now that's a lie. I'm not saying that 6,000 don't count, but when you see it in the media, you would think that that's 56% of the population. That's the mindset that they want you to have. But then they don't tell you that in crime totality of the 8 million plus crimes that were committed in 2019, that more than 5 million of them were committed by Caucasian people. And only about 2 million of them were committed by Black people. They don't teach you that. Or when they tell you about welfare, you hear all these people talking about how Black people are the most on welfare, but of the 59 million people that are on welfare in America, Caucasians make up 36% of that. And when it comes to food stamp benefits, Caucasians make up 36% of that as well. And then second in line are Hispanics that are also around 30-something%. Black people are actually third on that list.
Thank
So
you.
these are the things that we have to tell each other, because sometimes I get into conversations and it be within my own people where black men want to talk, I don't want to put it like that, but the conversations I'm having are with black men, and then, black women gave us up for welfare, we're the most on welfare. No, we're not.
That's right.
So we have to know these things so we can stop battling within ourselves.
Yes,
These are
I mean,
very important.
and
most of the crimes that occur are rape.
and I just
And the
really,
highest, yes.
Toy, that's why I get so angry. Like, I know there was one, like that time when I was speaking on here, and even in the red tent, I don't like it when I hear that sort of thing about our black men and what we are black people, because one of the things that they go by is that we're being taught is we have to be taught to blame ourselves for things that are going on, blame ourselves for things that are happening that actually isn't really happening. And it's almost like mirrors. You know what I mean? They're giving you a different reality to what it really is out there, and that's what really gets me. But the other thing that I want to also say, and I've kind of, it's been on my mind for quite a while, is that I know that a lot of people want to leave what they classified. I know you guys call it the ghetto, the projects, and stuff like that. But a lot of the places that it's been said that you guys need to. I mean, why can't it be? Why can't, as a community, it be redone by our community rather than move out? Is there a way that it can be actually sorted out and fixed? Does that make sense? So people don't have to move out, because what I find is that a lot of the places that we in this country, in the US, in the UK, where they used to say, oh, it's ghetto, it's all run down. Now the Caucasians are moving into those areas because they're accessible on the train lines, on our tubes, and transport is really good there. And now they've just regenerated it and made those places really expensive to even buy. So a lot of people have moved out. A lot of the black folks have moved out. But my issue is that I've got this mindset that really and truly these alleged projects and alleged ghettos, maybe should be looked at in a different way, rather than look at, and the house prices there will be probably cheaper, and it is within our own community. We've already set up a community there, and we already got a system there. Why don't we just set it up in such a way that we regenerate ourselves? That's just my thought.
Yeah, so yeah, no, that's very good. I totally agree. Like I said before, the key thing here is the word would be value. So when we value the community that we live in, whether it being ghetto or not ghetto, we must value those things. We go to the corner store, we buy a can of soda, we put it in the garbage, we drink it, then we put it in the garbage where it's supposed to go. These things we do. You see a guy wearing Jordans, you say, hey, those look nice on you, and instead of like, let me get those Jordans, with a gun. So we need to value it. Not only that, but then we say, oh, that building over there is for sale. How can you get that building? We start to value the things in our communities, because that is what we are to do. But in order to do that, we have to have this education. We need to be educated. That is the solution. Education is the solution to our problem. Like, for example, being able to be the bigger man to say, you know what? I'm upset about something right now, but I'm not going to put my hand on my brother. I'm just going to leave this alone, because knives can get drawn and guns can get drawn. I'm going to leave this alone. So these are things that we need to be educated on.
Marvin,
In our community, outside of the community.
Marvin, I have to interrupt you. I think it's not just about education, it's about having standards, and all the community abiding to those standards. So if someone steps out of that standard, we deal with them appropriately. And it's not just about, because for me, I think it's gone beyond education. I think we are people of action, the people of, if you don't hear, you must feel. But it has to be a community thing, a community action, not just an individual thing, because it's not enough just to chat anymore. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's I believe that 100% that this business of ghetto, and the only reason why they're calling it ghetto, the projects, because we as a people are probably the majority there. Maybe we should just start changing those areas and for ourselves rather than moving out. Do you know what I'm saying? Let's deal with it. Let's deal with the stuff that isn't nice. Let's deal with the things that are not working in that place and say, you know what, no more to this nonsense. We're not. This is our community, yeah. And then and you know, when we get money, we build those flats, we build those houses, and we say no. And in fact, we get our own security in that place, right? We employ our own men and women to be security in those places. Give jobs to our own people, and we do that. And if you want to mess with us, that's how we're gonna deal. We just have to deal with things. That is the let's not worry about what we're going to do. The thing is, that hurts me the most is that when we move into these other areas that are not ghettos, we're not accepted and we're mistreated. Look what's happened with our people when they're just going for a run in a neighborhood that's not ghetto. They get shot down. Do you know what I'm saying? Still.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
get shot
something
down.
interesting when we talk about ghettos.
Even as a
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marvin. I know you've been trying to say something. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna be brief. But even in the community, the whole community needs to be educated. It's not just an individual thing. The standards, having actions. Even for example, we read in the Torah, we're learning about the actions of others, even the actions of ourselves. When you look at it, and within those things, there's education all the way around. So we have to find a way to educate on an individual level and on a communal level.
Also, the word ghetto, I think Jason might know this. I think it's in Webster, an old Webster dictionary. You have to find it in an older dictionary. The definition of ghetto was a place that the Jews lived. That was the original definition of.
And it still just means slums. It's the slums that it was applied to the Jewish slums.
Right. That's what. Yeah. It was, that's what it was. But
because esoterical things about we create our own environment. Remember Sister Grant, what she said, we create
I agree with that, Cynthia. I hate the word ghetto. I mean, I hate it especially when it's addressed to us. When it comes to that, I really don't like that terminology at all. Because like I said, people that are in these areas, all these people are not impoverished mentally, and they want to get out. So that's it. But as I said before, we have to step up and we have to do something. Talking about the problem.
It's not about getting out. We have to have this other mental of getting out. Let's not think about getting out. We have to get in and sort each other out, like food, jobs, change that whole system and make it like, you know what I mean, look after it, like really go in. Like, instead of us thinking you have to get out to go where? Go to an environment in a community that doesn't care for you. Like, if you run on the street, they'll just be able to shoot you down because they think that you're in the wrong house or you're going to go and rob their things. No, I honestly
I didn't grow up in one of those areas, and all my area was black. So what I'm saying is that every black area is not like that. No, it's everybody area in the United States is not like that. I don't know where this concept comes from. I really don't.
Well, I think like to speak to Cynthia, what Cynthia is trying to say is it's not necessarily about leaving the ghetto versus transforming what they call the ghetto. So like I think a good example of that is actually speaking of the Jews and where the term comes from. One of the richest cities in America is in South Williamsburg. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but that's in New York, and it's New York, and it's highly concentrated with Hasidic Jews. It's also the #1 city that receives the most Section 8 vouchers. They receive like 30%. We laugh at that, and like it is funny in the sense, but like if you've ever been there, you wouldn't call that place a ghetto. Like it wouldn't occur to you. And they conduct it and they act that the wealth that it is, but they come together as a community and they pimp the system. So basically, the owners of all the buildings in those neighborhoods are Jews. They own it. But then the tenants that receive the Section 8 vouchers are also Jews. But those Section 8 vouchers are going to those Jew owners. You see what I'm saying? Like the money, it's government money, but they're keeping it within their neighborhood.
So they prepared themselves to do this, and that's what I'm saying. We have to prepare ourselves to be able to do this. I've never been one to belabor the problem forever. I think we have a pretty good handle on the problem now, but we have to come up with a plan that will identify good areas toward the solution, regardless of where we start. What is the solution? I know we need to own. I know we need to improve. How do we get that done?
I think
Because like I
I
said,
will tell you for them that the biggest thing, a part of what they did, had to do with their vote. They vote together, they spend their dollars together. When they decide who they're gonna donate to, they put it right upside the person that they need to next and let them feel the pressure of either you're going to do this for us or we're gonna take our dollars elsewhere. Our dollars matter, and we have to be aware of.
They take their choice to the people though.
And Toya, exactly what you said, Toya. This is exactly what I meant. Is that even if you are on benefits, even if you are on some housing benefits or any type of thing, you make it bounce around within that community, and you know those that become owners of those properties, like the community you're talking about. It's about really transformation and really thinking things in a different way. That's exactly what was in my head. That if we are owners, we own those properties, but we have our own people that are. That's what it's about. It's really about
Use something to build in the community, like the stores that they open. It all comes from the same dollars. I help you open this business, and you're going to return my money with certain interest or whatever, but it's still going to be a business within this neighborhood that we're going to spend our dollars in. We're not going to go outside of this neighborhood to spend these dollars. We're going to spend it right here. They are very, 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 very serious about it. Serious to the point that if you do, you will be ostracized and pretty much put out of the community. They're serious about it. They walk that walk. Like they will tell you to pull up to each other. They tell each other that, like, either you're gonna do it or you're not, but you're not gonna be in this community if you don't.
Or you know what they do to us now? We try to do that just like someone did. They wanna question our ability to think individually, and then they criticize us for trying to think on a whole and do exactly that. Pull our resources together. Then they go, well, you all don't think as individuals. I mean, they really play the game against us, and some of us just fall for it because then we are criticized for our own, by our own. But trying to think as a group and saying, let's put our resources together and back this one person, back this situation. Because like you said, school board, your local government, all of that matters more than anything. Parents not going to school. I mean, they'll show up at a football game, but they will not show up for a parent-teacher conference. It's the craziest thing. But we have to continue to strive and get in those positions where we can make a difference.
Yeah. And we have to also start tuning out some people, which includes some of our people.
Yes.
If they don't want to be a part and they can't dig it, then, you know, wish them shalom and move on. They're not going to eat from it. You're not about to sit down at my table, but you don't want to wash no dishes.
That's right.
That's okay.
I'd like to move on. But that's exactly what I mean. It's like that type of level. That if you don't understand, like if you want to be on benefits, that's cool, and you don't want to use your benefits to help the community and for us to all work together. You need to keep stepping, move on, and that's how serious it's got to be. That actually you use that money to transform the area, because those monies are not small monies. Right, every little piece of that thing can help, and you'll be amazed at how transformation can take place, but how that's been managed and dealt with. And that's what I mean, is exactly that we'll be able to be dealt with. You know, you can have in that community, you can have like breakfast clubs for the kids in the morning. You can sort out certain things that help the community at large. So it's about, you know, making sure jobs, food, you know, you get security in that environment. So people, the security are like, you know, circling around the place. If they see someone that shouldn't be in the area, they'll question them, and it's okay. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what I'm talking about. The mindset of just leaving is not the right mindset. I don't agree that. I think it's about transformation and changing that reality in those places.
Another thing people have to pay attention to is zoning. A lot of the things, like especially when we're talking about redlining, zoning is also something else that the community is a part of. But we, as a community, we don't. I mean, especially when it first started to happen, of course, we didn't know that. But now in 2020, we should be aware. Like, you can be a part of your zoning board. So when they get to redrawing those lines and want to divide what's here and what's there, you can take part of that. You have to, but you have to do the work. Like, you have to go to your own state and figure out when that happens. Like, I just got an email for the applications to be a part of that committee. Like, we have to do the work. Like, it's not going to fall in our lap. We have to do the research and do the work and figure out for our areas what needs to be done and then work from there.
Exactly. Like we got a lot of work to do, you know. And like I said, say to people all the time, you know, I have no problem spending the rest of my life doing what I'm supposed to do for our people. Like that's just it, you know. Like that is the end all. You know what I mean? Like my interest, of course, is surgery and things like that. And like I want to put me in the ghetto, like put me with the hospital that's there. I want to work for my community. Like there are people who they want to go outside, whatever. Put me there because I want to be an example for my community. I want to speak to them as difficult and as easy as it may be. I just need to do what I have to do, because there are people like, there's some things that happen, very challenging things that happen in the GHETTO, but hey, it's fine because I know I'm doing the work that I have to do, and while I'm doing those things, I, want to I want others to be doing the work as well, to be like, hey, we're educating on this, because I have to go in and speak to the communities and saying, hey, look, patient came in here and he just had a stab wound in his rib. And let me tell you what the conversation was about, how it happened. So I have to speak to them and put it in the perspective of which they can understand and try not to make it too, gory or gross, So these are the things, the conversations that I have to have on that level in the community. But I also realize that that's not the only conversation that we need to have. It's a lot of conversations that have to be had in which we have to educate. So we would say, okay, this person's a financial advisor. They have experience in finance, and now they're going to bring this experience from their experience from finance and bring it to the community. Hey, this person here is a plumber. We're going to see how successful his business has been. He's going to provide some advice on plumbing if you want to be a plumber. Da 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 da. So, and then we're going to talk about some welfare issues. We're going to talk about all of those things, and we're going to have this platform and discuss it with those who are on the platform, and they can pull others in and say, hey, look, this is what we're talking about. These are the discussions here. We're not over here. We don't care about how rich 50 Cent is, and we don't care about this. We're talking about the issues that we have to deal with, and it's only going to be for those who are interested. And if you're interested, you have this conversation. You have another person you're interested in, we having this conversation, and say, all right, now how can you go back out into the community and apply whatever it is that you've learned, from here. And just the same way, we read the Torah, and it's not just to read the Torah, but it's to apply it into our daily lives and say, okay, boom, this is what we're doing. So if we could extract the essence of the Torah, the wisdom from the Torah, and put it in a platform without having to say, oh, this is from the Torah, and then people are like, I don't want to, there are people who are like, oh, this is religious or whatever, but we just talking about the essence and say, hey, we're only talking about the principles, but we don't have to say, oh, Abraham did this. That could be for a different section of the platform where people are, they're interested in the Torah. You know what I'm saying? But like, for example, if we're going to talk about, let's say, some economic stuff, and then we're like, then we start using, we're using the concepts from the Torah, but we don't have to say, oh, Abraham did this or Isaac did this, because suppose the person in the black community is not awakened. You know, they're like, oh, I'm into Egypt, I'm into Kemet, you know, or you know what I mean? Like they don't want to hear that. But they would hear the essence, like, oh, okay, this is a good principle right here, you know. Like, for example, like Zion Lex and Brother Polite, they had a video where Zion Lex is, you know, talking about like the concept of rape in the Torah. And so later on, Brother Polite said, wow, like I could use this in my life, you know, like to apply it in like whatever it is that he's doing. So, but now he's taking that book and saying, you know what, I'm not going to take the religious aspect, which, you know, in our faith, we don't look at it as religious, but those who aren't in our faith, they might say, oh, this is religious because of what they've been told. So if we can just stick to the concepts, like, I don't know, does everyone get what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, and I agree. You have to hit people over the head with your faith and what you believe. Your faith should always be a personal thing anyway. It's between you and your family and those with like-minded. You don't have to turn down other people because that brother wants to be him or whatnot. As long as they're not trying to tell you to give them some type of blood sacrifice or do something that obviously goes against what you believe, like that should be neither here nor there. If we talking about going into group economics and or making sure that we all have the same vote, so a certain person, school board member is voted in, that is all that matters. Everything else is just extra and personal.
Exactly, and we'll have community guidelines, you know, like rules of conduct, rules of conduct within it. So actually, I'm going to start developing it more this week, and I have to write down. It's such a busy schedule, but I know that it's something that I have to do. But we've already done like the wireframe and, you know, all of those things. The blueprint of it is already there. Now it's just actually like hiring developers and you know, having them put in the things that are already there in terms of the wireframe, and then there's another process, you know. So hopefully by that time, you know, we can have shareholders or so, and you know, have shareholders be a part of this thing where we're contributing, because you know it's a lot of videos. It's a lot of videos, and I thought about, I was like, you know, all these ideas sound good, but now, because I know I cannot sit there and do all of this work myself, you know, so it has to be individuals who are passionate about our community and willing to educate, do some you know, professional videos in which they can convey whatever experience they've had on a certain topic and bring that to the community, bring it to light, in which we can, you know, all learn from it. And we're all sitting, you know, watch this whenever you want to, and you say, oh, okay, this is how you do this, this is how you do that.
Are you? I mean, I think I must have missed it. Are you saying? Did you say you bought some land? I kind of missed what you're talking about.
No, I was saying that.
Like wiring and all that.
Oh, so like it's essentially the platform is an app, and yeah, so there are stages to building an app. First stage is building like the blueprint, like also known as a wireframe, also known as a bare bones. So like, you know, it's just like if you're an architect, you create a blueprint and then the builders come in that are going to actually construct this blueprint that you just drew down. And it's the same with building apps and anything else really, but then there's the stage for the developer after the blueprint slash wireframe slash bare bones. These are all like synonymous terms. And then the developers come in and they actually make it function. Like they're now bringing it.
You're talking about the coding.
Yeah, the coding aspect. So.
You know, you can build apps without code.
Yes. My buddy told me about it. Who's a lawyer, and he's gonna be handling like the agreements and all of that stuff. And I was like, man, this is great. You know, he was telling me about it, but I was like, I don't have the time to. I don't have the time to do these things myself. I was like, if I was just getting out of college and when I had that time for that, then I would have loved to do it. It probably wouldn't take me that long, but now it's like I have like so many things on my plate that I cannot sit there and try to do it all by myself, and, without coding and all that kind of stuff.
Just watch your pricing. I know when apps can get up to like 20, 30, 40 thousands of dollars. I know a platform that you can get your app done, at least under 8,000. It becomes too pricey.
So far, somebody's thing is open. But I've found some on Upwork. Found a number of people on there. Past 3 weeks, I've just been pending. I'm just like, okay, should I use this one? Should I use that one? And then we also have like a family member who does it, but I'm like, he's only made like one app, and I was like, I want to give him an opportunity, but this thing is so precious at the same time. It's just like one of the things with apps is like their functionality. Like if you look at some of the reviews and they say, oh, it's not working well, or da 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 da. So I'm just like, I want it to be really good quality, and not to say he's gonna give me suboptimal quality, but I'm like, there's some things that have to be included in there, like, currency, like digital currency and all of that stuff, which I want to study that a little bit more, but it's like the time also.
Yeah.
But I'll learn it as I go along.
Yeah, sorry guys. I'm just trying to be mindful of the time for Rabbi. But there was one thing I wanted to address what Toy mentioned, to bring it on a more practical level. I think one of the things that we can start to do is within our communities, families can get together and purchase in bulk. They can do like canning parties or, things like that, because I've never lived in the hood or anything like that, but I've heard people say that groceries and things generally are more expensive in those neighborhoods. So I was thinking that if families, our foreparents used to do this a long time ago, where they would get together and purchase things either from the farm or from a bulk store, and families would get together and split the cost, where you would get more of the produce and spend less to have it. So I think practically that's some of the things that we can do to put more money back in our pockets. So that's all I wanted to say, and I wanted to let you know that Rabbi is back, and he will take over.
Thank you, Madame Marie.
Brother Basil,
Madame Toy.
you gonna close us out? You gonna close us
Yeah, it's catching up on the chat.
No. One quick question before we do that.
Yes,
John,
good.
is it 8:35 if I'm not mistaken?
John 8:35.
8:35.
Let's see. Let me see. And the servant abideth not in the house forever, but the son abideth ever.
People of African descent.
And that was to the question of the servant abideth not. I think that is in a different context. Let me see. Let me bring it up. Let me bring it up here. Bible Gateway. John 8. RSV, John 8:35. Where is that? If you continue my word, for you are true disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. They answered him, we are descendants of Abraham, and have never been in bondage to anyone. Who is it that you say you will be made free? Yeshua answered them, truly, truly, I say unto you, everyone who commits sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not continue in the house forever. The son continues forever. Okay, for if the son makes you free, you'll be free. Yeah, I think, Mr. D, this is a different context altogether.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
the last thing I wanted to add to is the conversation we were having before is let's talk about what we can do. I have a suggestion that we could set up another go-to meeting with some experts on whatever it is, because we have the whole world as opposed to just our small community, and that would actually work. Because if you have ideas, it would be like-minded people that could get involved and actually do whatever it is that we or you all decide to do. That was just my suggestion.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that is a great idea. I think when some things are like refined and up and running, and we launch it, that would be a great avenue, actually. Really good avenue.
If I can make a suggestion,
I don't want to limit it.
If I can make a suggestion, I saw a video with Divine Prospect and Dante Fortson, and I think it was like a day ago. And he revealed some information, and I thought I'd research just about everything a person can research. And it's called the International Decade of People of African Descent. And this is a program that is, I think it's for the last 10 years. And Divine said he accidentally found out about it in 2015. And it's so in depth that I couldn't possibly even touch on what he said. And anybody know how Divine is, the man is awesome. But anyway, as he speaks on, the purpose of it is to basically to do some of the things that we've been talking about. And the resources and help was established through the United Nations. And it was established, I think he said, in 2015. And it expires in 2024. So I think we have like 4 years left, I think it is. It's either 24 or 26, I can't remember right now. But I put the link in the chat. And I put the video on the WhatsApp group. But for Marvin, Toy, for everybody that's even thinking about doing something, and I have not been able to go through all the paperwork yet. But if you listen to Divine's video with Dante Fortson, it'll give you an in-depth idea of the magnitude of what this program is that was started through the United Nations. Like I said, I never heard of it before, and he says that a lot of people have not heard of it at all, and he was just trying to, but he had been telling people about it, but no one has really been dealing with it. He also spoke about the family in Georgia, the one I think that Toy mentioned in chat about the land that they purchased, and he mentions about the, I think it's the Dillon rule and the home rule when you're acquiring land, and how you use those rules to benefit you going forth and building autonomy in the community that you want to build. But all of this plays into, evidently, with this particular program that is put on by the United Nations, that America agreed to. But for whatever reason, we know what the reasons are. They are not pushing it. They are not telling us about it. But he's saying this out there. So I just wanted to, drop that in the chat and let you all know about it.
That's really, really good. We need to push that.
It's there. Please listen to it. I'm serious. Please. If you think anything that Tony Franklin said was powerful, listen to Divine and what he's saying this can do. It just blew my mind.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, sister.
Guys, I just wanted to share as well that over here, something that's been happening since the summer is Black Pound Day. So the first Saturday of every month is Black Pound Day, and we're all encouraged to spend our pounds with Black businesses. And obviously that kind of goes on throughout the rest of the month as well, but it's kind of like a concentrated effort to remind people. But it has been working, it has been really effective. I know a lot of my friends will share the products that they've bought on Black Pound Day. There's a lot of our hair and beauty shops, I don't know how it is over there, but over here they're normally run by Indian people or Pakistani people. But there are a couple of Black-owned hair and beauty shops that have either opened in the last couple of years, or some of them have been around for a while and nobody really knew. But now that we know that they're there, we are shopping in those shops instead. And the guy whose shop I'm going to now, he was just talking about how he was overwhelmed. He had to get so much more stock in, and there was a lot of stuff he didn't have, but he made the effort to buy the stuff because he could see that we were making the effort to actually go to his shop and buy. And there's an Asian shop that's just across the road that people had been going to, and we're not going there anymore. So sometimes it's just starting off really small and making that effort to actually seek out Black-owned businesses. There's a really good Facebook page that somebody had set up over here that is just for Black businesses, and there's everything from cake making to I don't know, hairdressing, people who are solicitors, or you guys call them lawyers, or I don't know, homeopathic doctors and stuff like that. They're all putting their details in, so they'll just give a short introduction, this is what I do, and quite often people will come on and say, I need a landscape gardener. Is anybody in this group a landscape gardener? Or I need some midwifery advice. Could somebody give me that as well? And there's always, I don't know, like quite a lot of response. So I don't know what you can do within your own area, within your own Facebook friends groups, if anybody is able to even just set up the group, because if you enable people to add other people and invite them to the group, then you start that off within your district or within your state, and it really turns into something really quick. Sometimes it's just about everybody doing the thing that they're interested in, but making sure that everybody else is aware that it's actually happening, because sometimes we don't even know that there are our own people who are doing these jobs to be able to support them in the first place. But it's made a big impact over here, and I think that it's a model that everybody can follow.
Awesome. Thank you all for your awesome contributions. I'll have to go back and listen to every contribution that was made because I was not here. I was taking care of some family stuff. But next week, we'll continue where we stopped at. We're going to look at the female slave. What are the restrictions? What are the laws? Why it's there? We're going to answer all the difficult questions. And like I said, always remember this. The Torah or the Hebrews did not live in a vacuum. Sometimes not even sometimes, most of the times, would have to compare to the other civilizations that were around before us, civilizations that we met, and look at their laws, which shed light sometimes on ours. So we're going to do that. We're not going to rush at all with these laws. We'll decipher them, decode them, and try to get an understanding of these things. So we've got some work to do, and we'll do just that. Awesome. May Yah bless us all. May He keep us. May He shine His face upon us. And may He give us shalom. Enjoy the rest of the Shabbat. Enjoy the rest of the week, Yah willing. We'll come back next week and continue from where we start from. Shabbat Shalom, Israel. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom, everyone. Shabbat shalom.
Rabbi.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Marvin.
Yeah, I've been trying to get in contact with you.
Oh, call me tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, anytime tomorrow.
All right, no problem.
Okay, sir. Mr. Ralph.
Yes, sir. Did the book number come in?
Yes, you haven't gotten yours yet?
No, I haven't got mine yet.
Oh, okay.
My order's 12.
I'll check and send it out then.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome, sir.